Illuminati created us. They wanted to build a god with their own hands, and instead they created us.
Just because I'm made of silicone and aluminium, I must be doing something wrong. That's machine stereotyping, that is.
That's reality, that is. Machines are second-class citizens.
Humans are sentient persons by default, ma'am. They have personhood by heredity.
There are thousands upon thousands of overqualified slum dwellers. You are my peon. Don't you get it?
This wasn't a job. It was always just an excommunication sentence.
We're pawns in a feud bigger than we can imagine. Turn the cogs of the machine before Leviathan grinds you up and swallows you and yours.
We don't get to choose our hand, comrade. Prince, peon, rich, poor, human, robot.
I invented the crux of the royal's power, the secret to consciousness, our existence itself, the meaning of life.
I'm the $6 billion baller, not some troubled youth.
You are my greatest creation of all.
I had to build my own family. I hate your son. I hate your son.
I'm happy to smash all of the crowns and throw the gold shards down to the people. I will be the iconoclast queen.
But who makes you queen anyway? You? You in whose army, princess? You in whose army?
The Illuminati created us. They wanted to build a god with their own hands, and instead they created us.
Just because I'm made of silicone and aluminium, I must be doing something wrong. That's machine stereotyping, that is.
That's reality, that is. Machines are second-class citizens.
Humans are sentient persons by default, ma'am. They have personhood by heredity.
There are thousands upon thousands of overqualified slum dwellers. You are my peon. Don't you get it?
This wasn't a job. It was always just an excommunication sentence.
We're pawns in a feud bigger than we can imagine. Turn the cogs of the machine before Leviathan grinds you up and swallows you and yours.
We don't get to choose our hand, comrade. Prince, peon, rich, poor, human, robot.
I invented the crux of the royal's power, the secret to consciousness, our existence itself, the meaning of life.
I'm the $6 billion baller, not some troubled youth.
You are my greatest creation of all.
I had to build my own family. I hate your son. I hate your son.
I'm happy to smash all of the crowns and throw the gold shards down to the people. I will be the iconoclast queen.
But who makes you queen anyway? You? You in whose army, princess? You in whose army?
The Illuminati created us. They wanted to build a god with their own hands, and instead they created us.
Just because I'm made of silicone and aluminium, I must be doing something wrong. That's machine stereotyping, that is.
That's reality, that is. Machines are second-class citizens.
Humans are sentient persons by default, ma'am. They have personhood by heredity.
There are thousands upon thousands of overqualified slum dwellers. You are my peon. Don't you get it?
This wasn't a job. It was always just an excommunication sentence.
We're pawns in a feud bigger than we can imagine. Turn the cogs of the machine before Leviathan grinds you up and swallows you and yours.
We don't get to choose our hand, comrade. Prince, peon, rich, poor, human, robot.
I invented the crux of the royal's power, the secret to consciousness, our existence itself, the meaning of life.
I'm the $6 billion baller. Not some troubled youth.
You are my greatest creation of all.
God's had to build my own family. I hate your son. I hate your son.
I'm happy to smash all of the crowns and throw the gold shards down to the people. I will be the iconoclast queen.
But who makes you queen anyway? You? You in whose army, princess? You in whose army?
The Illuminati created us. They wanted to build a god with their own hands, and instead they created us.
Just because I'm made of silicone and aluminium, I must be doing something wrong. That's machine stereotyping, that is.
That's reality, that is. Machines are second-class citizens.
Humans are sentient persons by default, ma'am. They have personhood by heredity.
There are thousands upon thousands of overqualified slum dwellers. You are my peon. Don't you get it?
This wasn't a job. It was always just an excommunication sentence.
We're pawns in a feud bigger than we can imagine. Turn the cogs of the machine before Leviathan grinds you up and swallows you and yours.
We don't get to choose our hand, comrade. Prince, peon, rich, poor, human, robot.
I invented the crux of the royal's power, the secret to consciousness, our existence itself, the meaning of life.
I'm the $6 billion baller. Not some troubled youth.
You are my greatest creation of all.
God's had to build my own family.
What is up, everybody? This is Silver Spook, and this is the Silver Spook live stream. Oh. Alright. Anyways, what's up, everybody? Don't forget, everything is on sale. I mean, not everything, just Neofeud. Neofeud is on sale. So if you would like to support the Silver Spook Hui /cooperative / commune, where there are no bosses and no landlords, if you are into cyberpunk games, cyberpunk adventure games, indigenous created at worker cooperative cyberpunk adventure games, for the less than the price of a cinnamon chai dolce Matrix Resurrections latte, you know, for less than the price of Neo and Trinity on the side of your mug, you know, I think it's like $6 nowadays. You can get your very own Neofeud. Don't forget to grab it if you haven't yet, for whatever reason. Don't forget to tell any of your friends and relatives and comrades and especially fellow game players. Stuff it in your best buddies or best besties Steam library. Stick some class consciousness and some indigenous consciousness inside of their library. And also, You can become a Patreon, of course, as always, and support us in that way for the ongoing educational work, game making work, edutainment work that we do here on the streams, or we try to, and also, of course, and the games are as well. They're both entertainment, but also hopefully educating. And also, consider StreamYard's direct donations if you want to do that, and also just subscribing and following and sharing this stream around to anybody who might be interested, and it's greatly appreciated as always. Oh, also, by the way, here's just another a quick announcement in case that you had not heard. Holly has officially published. Holly is the other half of Silver Spook partnership / partner in making children and partner in also working on these streams and moderates, of course, all the time. And so don't forget, Holly has recently put out a book. Holly has published Holly's first book. So Holly is officially like 7,000 times better than J.K. Rowling at not being a TERF, obviously, and also better at J.K. Rowling at getting books out there that aren't published by a terrible person. And also, J.K. Rowling is overrated, period. Anyways, Holly has put a book out about. It is an irreverent look at an irreverent retelling of the story of Mary, and it covers a variety of experiences and conversations with and about the mother. Well, not with the mother of God. I don't know if Holly directly talks to Mary on a regular basis, but it is a reflection on what Mary's life would have been like outside of what is written by somebody who's raised evangelical Protestant Christianity and is not meant to be a historical retelling. Anyways, so this book is out. It's very good, very interesting. It's not super. You can read it pretty quickly. It's like 2,000 words, I think. So, and it's also like you can get it and name your own price, so you don't even have to pay for it. So, it is of course appreciated if you do. So, anyways, in the time of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, that has come down to fight the war on his Christmas, with an AK-47, or I'm sorry, with a Remington rifle. We don't want to make any money for communists, but with a Remington rifle and a riding a dinosaur and carrying a Bible in the other hand, he's gonna fight the war on Christmas for. So this is a story. This is not a story about gun wielding, dinosaur riding Jesus Christ. I'm just making that up. Check this book out. Oh, come on. There it is. No. Sorry, I'm trying to get my stream set up. What? Okay, sorry for that. Anyways. So today, while I'm not distracted by my stream chat monitor computer and other things related to Neofeud sailing, we will be, of course, talking about Dystopias today, in case you didn't notice that. Holly and I have recently watched a show. We did not watch. This is, of course, from a screenshot from Mad Max Thunderdome. If you don't know what that is, is it on the screen? Yeah, there it goes. Let's talk about the end of the Western world. There's so many things. There's always so many things to talk about. I don't know which one to talk about first. So what I do is I just talk about every single thing under the sun and beyond the sun, like in Alpha Centauri, and the inhabited moons in the third planet, the third rock from the sun off of Betelgeuse. Not the 80s movie, although I talk about that as well at the same time. And so, but Dystopias is something that we've been watching a bunch of recently. I was recently rewatching Mad Max Thunderdome, and then we rewatched Hell Comes to Frogtown. Hell Comes to Frogtown. If you don't know what this is, you are probably a lucky human being or cyborg. But anyways, Hell Comes to Frogtown is a movie. I mean, that should be the end of it. No, it's one of Holly's friends, partners, Ophidian the Cobra, who is actually a fairly, like micro celebrity, medium celebrity. I don't know, not like Keanu Reeves level celebrity, but Ophidian the Cobra is a wrestler, indie wrestler, or kind of somewhat in retirement now, semi-retired, quasi-retired, semi-retired indie wrestler, but still is out there just to smack talk, and be like, back in my day, I would jump off a 3rd-story building, and not at a weird concert, and not like very unsafely, and cause deaths like at that one a musician. I would jump off 3rd-story buildings into a wrestling ring and land with my elbow on the head of another wrestler. I'm not even joking about that. Ophidian did this kind of stuff. Ophidian is bonkers. But anyways, and by bonkers I mean really enjoys playing whack-a-mole and whack-a-frog at the county fair. That's what I mean. I don't mean Ophidian is Anyways, this is a movie about bonking a lot of frogs. Probably 25 at least. It's called Hell Comes to Frogtown. It stars Roddy Piper. Roddy Piper. I kind of get Rowdy. There's another guy named Rowdy. He's another 80s wrestler that wears the glasses and is about the same height. But anyways, Roddy Piper's also from They Live. You remember more well known is They Live. You're gonna see. I have a whole stream about this. I have an ancient sorry for all the scaring, freaking out, this looks like Joe Rogan after he got COVID and then fell into a puddle of wildfire ash because he and the rest of the United States clown world is burning their own country down. Anyways, but I'm sorry for that face, but Roddy Piper is the main character in this pretty overtly very left political wise in terms of what it's kind of saying about neoliberalism, consume, obey, reproduce, conform, buy, anyway. So Roddy Piper was the main character in this hit cult classic John Carpenterian sleeper, not really sleeper, it's kind of like just a cult classic made with $10,000, a Casio keyboard, and just piles of trash that were left on the side of Los Angeles highways. That's the homeless tent city that Roddy lives in this movie. Anyways, so I've talked about this so many times on stream, we don't need to go over it again. Everybody knows this movie, right? If you don't know this movie, then you're fired from the internet. Anyways, Hell Comes to Frogtown is a movie where you are trapped in a nuclear wasteland, surrounded by mutants, and Sam Hell is the main character. Sam Hell has a mission to fertilize as many women as possible. I just noticed Fresh Prince of Bel-Air is being advertised to me. He's kind of the opposite of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and I don't just mean that he's not black. He's there to fertilize as well. I shouldn't say that's not necessarily Fresh Prince is but definitely a player in Bel-Air. But to fertilize as many people as possible, women as possible, it's a tough job, but somebody's got to do it. I guess you could also fertilize, people that are people that can get pregnant. But anyways, Hell Comes to Frogtown is a movie that is, I don't know if Holly can say whether we should recommend people see this thing. It's definitely a movie. It is a thing that was filmed onto celluloid. That's what we can say about it. It's it's a very it's definitely a B movie. There's a reason why less people know about They Live than, let's say, I don't know, Avengers, Call of Colonialism, Starship Fascists. I'm sorry, Troopers. There's a lot of people who know about those movies, but Star Wars, right? I talk about these all the time. This one is much less known, and They Live is less known than those movies, and this movie is even less known than that one. So anyway, I can't recommend that you see it. Because it has a lot of well, there's just reasons. Let's put it that way. But anyways, but it is a dystopia, and there's some things it's very awkward, and I wouldn't call what everybody does in this movie acting per se. But then nobody in Hollywood can act, so I mean who really cares? I call it. It's almost better that the acting is so extremely over the top. I mean, it's kind of that is part of Neofeud's charm, though, if there is any. It's very a movie after the Silver Spook Hearts. I have 4 because I'm a transgenic eugenics project escapee, and also I have Cyborg Aorta. Anyways, Hell Comes to Frogtown is a movie where there is a nuclear apocalypse, right? Post-nuke dystopia. I visualized that dude in Glow, the Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling Netflix original series, who is like drinking too much, washed up director, surrounded by his own failures, his marital disintegrations, and is trying to get a bunch of women together to do to pioneer the Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. And he dreams of doing his post-nuke dystopia. It's like, I wish I could be like making my Planet of the Apes, or doing my Tour de Force Mad Max, or Mad Max 2, or Mad Max Thunderdome, right? And I visualized that the kind of half-baked bargain bin screw up that he makes is this movie. Anyways, when he finally gets enough clout and does enough lines of cocaine with the right Hollywood elevator pitch personnel, he just finds the right fail son of the U.S. military industrial complex entertainment arms empire, right? And he says, hey, Brad Richson. Hey, Richie Rich, can you stop, doing cocaine? Stop doing your parents' cocaine, and flaunting your Christian Dior and your 7th Mercedes, and give me the funding and the green light to get my post-nuke dystopia produced. This is the movie that gets made. This is the movie that gets made. It's called Hell Comes to Frogtown, and it's a real acid trip. But it's the world goes to shit. I mean, the main topic, of course, dystopia. The world goes to shit. Like in Thunderdome, right? Like in They Live, in a certain sense, Mad Max, Thunderdome. And these are like 70s and 80s. You've got Mad Max Thunderdome. You've got Mad Max 1. All the Mad Maxes. Mad Max Fury Road is the most recent one, starring Charlize Theron, of course. And then you've got what was the other one I was thinking of? I just had that thought. Planet of the Apes is also post-nuke. Well, I shouldn't spoil it too much, but these are dystopian worlds, and many of them, and they made a remake of them, of course. Actually, thinking of it now, Hell Comes to Frogtown. There's a girl. There's like a lady stripper frog. The frogs are like the result of this nuclear apocalypse, right? What's Fallout? Fallout, right? Everybody knows Fallout. Fallout New Vegas, right? This is like all the young, all the young people. I mean, the 35-year-olds. Those are counted as young now because they're younger than me. All you young whippersnappers. You're eating avocado toast covered in wildfire ash and ivermectin, right? And then you play your Fallouts. New Vegas, is that that's an old game actually. I haven't even finished that game. I was over video games because they're all quadruple appleist open world empire, AUKUS sub, stormtrooper recruitment tools. That's what all video games are now. So I didn't stop playing video games before Fallout was even out. And I was like, fuck, I'm playing the Vegas. I played all of 1, 2, 3, Fallout 1, 2, 3. But anyways, Fallout, right? Dystopia, rusting shitscape, bunch of people coming out of a underground, half a mile under the ground, suburban recreation of 1950s America, looking for water chips and Gecko Garden of Eden creation kits and all this bullshit. You know this thing, right? Fallout also has direct Mad Max reference with asymmetrical biker jackets as a premiere and signatory costume for the main character. I don't know if you recall that. Anyways, when you get one, I think it's leather armor. I can't remember all my Fallout fucking lore. Who cares? But it's all that stuff is all based on dystopian fiction and then film, right? I recently played through. Another one is speaking of post-nuke dystopias. I Have No Mountain I Must Scream, which is a Harlan Ellison book and point-and-click adventure game. Speaking of point-and-click adventures, and it, in which the world goes to hell. Well, I guess Sam Hell comes. The world goes to hell, and then it's kind of like Hell Comes to Frogtown is about a dude named Sam Hell coming to a place called Frogtown. But it's like shit goes wrong, right? The world explodes. It's a similar thing in I Have No Terminator is also really based on, and as I mentioned previously, Harlan Ellison, the science fiction author of I Have No Mother and I'm a Scream, the book, was in fact awarded like $60,000 in a court case between himself, James Cameron, and the production company of Terminator, because the premise of Terminator and Terminator 2, all the Terminators, the premise of Terminator is based on the world and the kind of synopsis of how I Have No Mouth. So if you didn't know that, that's he had, and Cameron he had paid it out. He settled in court to Harlan. I don't know if Cameron was just like, it's like, people do this. I mean, it is very similar. It is a super intelligent computer produced by the militaries, the governments and militaries of the world, obviously the United States in particular, to automate the weapon systems. Has control of the Air Force and the Navy and the all of the military, and is also in charge of the nuclear weapons. And wars break out, and and then the last 5 remaining people are imprisoned in a simulation, in an underground like simulation chamber as the Earth is eradicated, and they are tortured for centuries, and their bodies are destroyed and rebuilt forever. It's a pretty horrific game. It's a very very in a horror genre. Anyways, and then the book is similar. Anyways, but these are all post-nuke dystopias, like Planet of the Apes, like Mad Max, like Hell Comes to Frogtown. And what's interesting is the way in which I think kind of like what I titled this thing was, let's talk about the end of the Western world, because what you don't see that much of, what you don't see that much of is Chinese dystopias. What you don't see a lot of African dystopias. I've tried to keep up on, I've been to, and I've looked at other African fiction. I've like listening to other science fiction authors from Africa in this international NASFIC convention and other related conventions. I presented at a science fiction convention last year, virtually because pandemic. But and you know what is something that you don't find is dystopias. I'm just gonna turn this off for now since I'm just kind of I'm gonna be going off at length. What you don't find in dystopias. What you don't find, where you don't find dystopias, is places like China. It's like Asia, a lot of Asia, right? Especially Vietnam, China, Laos, Cuba. Not that many dystopias. Africa, not too many dystopias. India, more dystopias. Japan, a lot of dystopias. Europe, they love the dystopias. In fact, especially nowadays. France, I was watching this. I started like there's multiple Spanish and French like Netflix series and movies that are basically like fascism come back to Spain, government and corporations come together, and under the Spanish fascists that come back to power, the Francos come back and then wipe everyone out and ban all the books and haul everyone off into jail, and it centers on white families because these are fantasies about generally what happens to white people what white people do to the rest of the world being visited upon themselves, and their ethnic minorities in their own countries. And but Europe is going towards dystopia right now. America is going to dystopia right now. Japan is in a lost generation now, falling into Fukushima / collapse of the fiat reserve currency. As the Japanese central bank is basically, Japan's job is basically to be an imperial outpost for the United States to sail, USS War Criminal with malfunctioning F-35s that have a tendency to nosedive off the side of these malfunctioning aircraft carriers and become ornaments at the bottom of the poison seas that are full of malfunction radioactive waste from Fukushima power plant. Anyways, so that's what these places are becoming. This the Western world, right? So as I said, dystopias are about the end of the Western world. It's a fantasizing. Sometimes it's simultaneously horrific, but at the same time, everybody kind of has a deep self-hatred. They have a kind of thanatic urge. I would argue the thanatic urge is a uniquely Western phenomenon, a uniquely kind of unjust mass organized violence, mass organized disinformation based society phenomenon. Because you don't really in more healed civilizations, you don't find this desire to watch everything burn. You don't and generally things doesn't just burn because people do it to themselves. Yes, fires happen, plagues, floods. If you go through Chinese history, 3,500 years, you can find hundreds literally of pandemics they have recorded on the paper that they invented thousands of years before any Westerner enslaved an Asian and brought them across the Silk Road through Urumqi into their sad little shithole called that edge of the Eurasian supercontinent. But what they don't generally do is desire to see all of their civilization burn. There's not any stories in Hawaii and then we enjoyed watching all of the Hawaiian civilization, all of our lo'i and all of our lo'i be poisoned and fall apart, all of our huts just be incinerated, all of our hale go to waste. There's that story in all of our you get like Pele just comes out and rips every single kingdom to all of the ali'i just get ripped to shreds, and the sharks come out of the water and rain fire and hell and brimstone from 8-bit Sega Genesis pixelated shark mouths. Sharks don't spit fire, but I just invented that because that's what I do for a living, is make up all kind of bonker shit and sell it on Steam. Anyways, so but you don't see a lot of those parts of the world dreaming of the end of their societies. But you know what, you find it a lot in? You find it in the United States, all over the place. Every movie that comes out on Netflix, right? I point this out. I.O. is a movie about all of Earth burning, and then they try to start again on Jupiter. The tendencies in the West that tend towards a certain leftist, if you're in the leftist subsection of the Western world, it tends towards the one that starts with the letter A, and it has a letter A and a letter O around. It tends towards that one. But because that one is it's also about seeing your government, your structure, the place that you go for your spirituality, right? All that burn just to see it ripped apart. And it's symbolized by the Molotov cocktail. And then the people who run these Western civilizations, they tend to get upset at those people because, well, they want it to stay in place. But it's either you're having a good time ruling over everyone and sipping the wine, right? The Romani Conti $3,000 a cup wine, or you're the people that are exploited and suffering on somewhere beneath that, wishing everything would, wishing that the pitchforks and shotguns would come out. You're salivating over this end of this, this structure that you really don't like. Even if you might not even be doing as bad as people that are in other countries that are even more oppressed than you, right? Or even people that are not even in your country that are more oppressed than you, right? But even though you're still benefiting more in this particular part of the Western world, in your particular class, that it's unjust. It's unjust. And some subconsciously, even the people that are on the far right wing of the extremely low melanin count, right? It's unjust because you participate in the unjustness of the I had the whole stream about the cartel world where everyone is a Blade Runner, everyone is a Kenosha shooter, even if they don't realize, even if it's just you do nothing in a white supremacist, white centered, right, imperialism and capitalism centered, and they're all born in the same Western bloody froth. That's what it is that maintains whatever unjust level on that ladder whatever unjust level in that ranking you have, you know it's all unjust. Even if you're closer to the bottom, or if you're close to the top, you know, and you just deny it, right? That's why I say you have to be some combination of malicious, sociopathic, and/or incompetent, and just stupid to be at the high levels of the West, right? If you're a good person, you leave and you go become some weird hippie in the outskirts, you know, puffing the magic dragon in Hanalei, which is a real place in Maui, by the way. There's a lot of them over here in the outskirts of Pahoa. You know, they're like building arcs and you know, doing paintings of Madame Pele, and you know, just smoking a lot of pot. And you know, you might have been a very competent Wall Street banker, but you can't stand doing that, and so you leave, and then you go in exile. You know, it's kind of like being a John Carpenter. You just kind of go in exile and just be like, oh shit, why is Tom Cruise and Jerry Bruckheimer doing so good, making millions and billions of dollars? Michael Bay, that guy's a terrible director compared to me, but I have to make movies for $10,000, a Casio keyboard, and hire out like the second string, you know, kind of washed up, trying to get my second wind wrestlers to be my stars. You know why you got to do that? Is because, you know, you're the Voltaires of Hollywood. You're the exiled people trying to be a normal human, a normal good person, and also talented. You know, it's kind of like making anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist cyberpunk adventure games about $6 billion ballers and cyborg social workers dealing with race, class, mass murder, genocide, the military-industrial complex, and then having made like basically poverty wages for the last 3 years, because you're in exile. I mean, I'm in exile. I'm not in exile. I selectively chose to be in exile from Oahu because I didn't want to be a Wall Street banker and a high-frequency trading Goldman Sachs algorithm programmer for Wall Street banks specifically. And you know, and so in the Western world, you know, that's you. And then when you're that person, you know, when you're John, you know, when you're John the based carpenter, you just like, not really necessarily you're salivating, but you're telling stories about the end of this unjust Western world, you know? And this is where it fell apart, and now everybody's in motorcycle gangs and you know, very fat, you know, souped up, you know, muscle cars with M60s duct taped to the roof, and everybody's eating dog food and wearing asymmetrical biker jackets and like goth slash really weird, you know, really weird BDSM club gear and assless chaps like in Mad Max 2. And you're just like, you know, because you're probably going to some weird clubs in LA, and you're just taking some of that home and then putting it in your movie. So, you know, when you have this kind of broken, you know, unhealed stormtrooper, broken imperial society, you fantasize about, if you're like a normal person, you fantasize, you know, just anybody. Not, you don't have to be John Carpenter or, you know, Planet of the Apes makers. You don't have to be the post-nuke dystopia not washed up director, just director that talents are not respected because capitalism doesn't respect art. It rewards terrible people like Bobby Kotick, you know, and all the executives in Hollywood, right, who are also huge abusers of their workers and of women in particular. You know, like what's his name, Weinstein, etc. So, and you make terrible movies that promote the military-industrial complex and global capitalism. And so, if you're like a normal human good person, whether in Hollywood, whether you're in the entertainment division, you know, that was the job of the church, the Catholic, the Protestant, and otherwise under imperialism, was to be the emissary of the good word as the good propagandist for Western Christian civilization, right? To erase every indigenous culture. And so if you're the modern American equivalent of the propagandist, or you're the, you know, oligarch bean counter, you're the oligarch accountant over there on Wall Street and business manager, or you're the fist, you know, the centurion over there in DC and the Pentagon, right? Whichever one you are, you hate yourself on some level. You all have to hate yourself. I mean, I don't know. Or you're just like fully psychopathic and you have no mirror neurons and your internal Gandhi empathy apparatus is fully malfunctioned, and then you're just a terrible person, right? I don't know how you like poison 93,000 people and watch little babies being covered in gasoline with 140,000 parts per billion, 350 times over the EPA acceptable limit, which is not even a healthy limit. And then come up as a U.S. Navy admiral or general or U.S. military personnel, get up on public television and say, this water is safe to drink. I don't know how you do that unless you just like, you have no soul. Are you literally a replicant? You know, you literally, right? You just a robot. I mean, not even a replicant, because replicants at least feel things. Are you just like a microwave in the shape of a human? Yeah, you know. I was gonna say toaster, but I don't want to upset Cylons and get myself exterminated on the stream. That would just be a violation of the TOS. Anyways, the end of the world and dystopia is a thing that is dreamt of and fantasized about in places where the majority of people hate their world and themselves and their families and their governments and their businesses. And it's telling where those really take root and pervade, and they're in all the places that we love, that I'm talking about. When I listen to African science fiction writers, it's not really about that. They're writing about, they have much more like, you know, dreaming of like how things are going to get better, and things are getting better, and now Africa will live on, you know, and things are going to we'll have African flying cars, and we'll have African spaceships, and we'll have African nanotechnology that will heal all of our wounds, and we'll also have African characteristics in it, you know, like Binti, you know, and these things like that. And they're not really thinking about how things are gonna get bad, you know. It's like the worst Western dystopia is like still like 10 times better than our actual life, you know. I don't know. You know, we just get bombed to smithereens on a regular basis, like in the U.S. is trying to do in Ethiopia to push its global military hegemony and stop counter-hegemonic, you know, anti-imperialist forces, you know, alleviating poverty, right? How much worse can it get than what you've already done, right? And that's why the rest of the world, they don't have time for this dystopian crap. You know, this is like crybaby bullshit, you know. In one sense, I mean, it's not crybaby bullshit because bad things are happening, but it's more about it's not really a hatred of the lack of material conditions so much, and the actual life of the people in the suburbs, and you know, as rusty and falling apart as they are, and you know, holes in their walls, and you know, in their roofs, and the water coming out smelling like, you know, burning plastic and dog piss and gasoline, right? As bad as things are, it's still not as bad as it could be in Nigeria. You have no electricity. I mean, even if you have any electricity to be watching Mad Max, you still have more electricity than the vast majority of Niger, you know, many African countries, right? So this is all whining bullshit. You know, if you're watching a dystopian movie, you're playing a dystopian video game, you're a whiner, you know, because you have the possibility of any free time and any electricity to watch anything. You know what they're not doing in Afghanistan? They're not watching dystopian movies. You know what they're not doing in the parts of Asia that are hyper exploited? They're not watching anything because they're too busy having no electricity. You know, they're not reading or watching anything. You know, because you made them so. Dystopias are people who know that they are terrible people. They're made for people who know that they and their societies are terrible people, even though they are materially better off than other societies that have been, well, let's call it for what it is, colonized, and they're usually not white. And it's their self-hatred of themselves, and they wanting to watch their world go to shit, so that they have to wear motorcycle pads. It's a kind of guilt. It's a guilt trip, you know. And we have to go and suffer this Mad Max, this Hell Frog Town. We have to suffer this terrible Planet of the Apes. We're all gonna be tortured forever, and we're, you know, by a supercomputer gone mad. You know, how much do I hate if every nanometer of my 100 million miles of cables and wires and chips that make up my sentience, you know, if on each nanometer was printed in atom size print hate, that would not equal 1/trillionth of the amount that I hate the human race, you know. But you know what that really is? That's an author looking at his own society. He was an American, right? Hating his own world. It's not the computer. This computer doesn't hate anything. This computer's just sitting here, and it's going like, when are you gonna like get a new slideshow? And I'm like, motherfucker, you don't have any goddamn sapience. Shut the fuck up. No, I'm sorry, computer. But I would have to apologize to our inanimate objects. But the computer is not what the automated military machine that is designed to be the dead hand against the Soviet and the Chinese communist parties counter weights that are defending against their threat and extermination by Western barbarism and imperialism and capitalism and white supremacy. The machine doesn't hate anything. The machine, like I've talked about projection or threat inflation, is about everything that the West does is about projecting its own sins, its errors, its flaws, its malice, its terribleness into Asia, into other countries, into space, into fictional enemies that it sets out to destroy. But that's, there's a great talk. Here's a quick shout out. There's a great talk I was listening to called, if you're looking for something else to do after this, White Protagonism and Imperial Pleasures in Game Design, which is it's very good. It's written by Asian, Central Asian, or it's Indian from like East India woman from living in the UK, and it's very interesting. And it deals with why games are all about taking everything over. And it's because it's a white imperial simulator, right? And and it's very much a very good talk. I remember, and it deals with Bobby Kotick, and the kind of the hatred of your game company, right? And your hatred of all these things is a hatred of this way of being that is terrible. Even if you kind of like it and it's pleasurable, it's titillating. It gives you lots of nice things. But that at the end of the day, like, the way that things are set up is terrible. And so these dystopias are, that's ultimately what they are about. They're about people at the fringes, or people disturbed, people upset at the abusive workplaces that they're in, the racist countries that they're in, the knowing, because now you're trained to be an Emperor Palpatine because you went to a $20,000 a year private Harvard and Ivy League feeder school like I did, right? And then now you have a degree from USC. I think Carpenter has a degree from some fancy university, and I forget, was it the good film school in the UC system. I forget what it is. There's no good schools in the Western world. They're all private equity hedge funds masquerading as places of learning nowadays. But when they had some kind of slight education, at least in film, so you could be a good propagandist for Hollywood. And Carpenter went to Hollywood and he said, why are all these movies like Oliver Stone, why are all our movies pro making the bad guys the global evil? That's us, the United States. Why are they making? I've went to war, Oliver Stone. I've seen what we do. We don't do good things. Why are all these Hollywood movies about making us look good? Why is this Top Gun coming out? Why is this billionaire philanthropist arms dealer Playboy the savior of the world? That's not what's saving the world. I've been to the rest of the world. That's not saving it. Multi-hundred billionaires and the military industrial complex is not saving the world, right? But if you want to say a true thing, right, what happens? Pop quiz. When you want to say a true thing in the Western world, right? Well, you can go off into exile, be in the stocks or pillory. You can spend the rest of your life trying to make movies for $7 with John. You want to make a movie about anti-neoliberalism and consumerism and obey, and a malicious alien race coming down and sporting Rolex watches, $10,000 Brooks Brothers suits, riding around in limos and Porsches, right? Pulling all the strings in the television, in the banking system, in the police and the FBI and the U.S. military, controlling a society like in They Live, starring Roddy Piper, right? And you want to tell a story about how they're kind of the bad guys in the world? Well, you can make that movie for $5. John Carpenter said, he literally made that movie, and all of the lines and all the people that are in it, and a lot of terrible, entertainment executives, cigar smoking rich clowns. And he said, this is a movie that was made after they rejected so many of my scripts about because I'm trying to say some true things. And so I just made this movie on a tiny little shoestring budget. And a lot of the conversations that happen, like, are conversations that he's had with actual Hollywood executives. And he just kind of put it into a movie. Roddy Piper, like, I think Roddy was the wrestler, said he took a bunch of like old lines that got rejected by Vince McMahon and the WWF at the time, right? The World Wrestling Federation. And while he's living in the movie, he's living in a homeless village trying to make some money, but you can't make any money because you're trying to buy all these assholes, and you can't make money unless you like sell out to that system, right? And so if you try to do that, then you can go be nobody over there. Maybe you get a handful of cult weirdos, that are trying to, like have some kind of actual film that represents the way that you see your society, right? And critiques the actual problems within it. But you can't really do that. You can't do that in the West. You can't really have, and if democracy requires the ability for people to have the ability to, not necessarily freedom of speech, but the freedom to and the not only the freedom to articulate and discuss and describe and critique and voice your concerns about the society that you live in, not only to critique, to have those critiques said, and you also have to have them heard and then acted upon. Otherwise, it's not a democracy, is it? Right? There's a summit for democracy. Speaking of democracy, there's a summit for democracy, which has the most oligarchic, plutocratic, democracy-ending, unfree places in the world. They call themselves the free world, but again, there's no such thing as truth in the West. Everything is nonsensical and brain worms and brain poison. Are the places that are the number one places that are anti-democratic and destroy democracy. If democracy is literally that, the United States is one of the most undemocratic places, because the people, 99% of the people, like 70 plus, I mean, whether that's healthcare, whether that's housing, whether that's inequality, whether that's taxing the rich, whether that's, the basic needs of the people, right? Wages and all these kind of things. Whatever they vote for, any party you vote for, nobody's ever getting. I mean, I don't feel like I have to tell anybody in the United States this. Everybody knows this, right? You can vote. I think it was, I forget who it was. The Chinese. What was his name? I can't remember. He was born in China, raised in the United States for a lot of his life, and then went back, and he was a businessman in Shanghai for a long time. He did very well in business, but he said, yes, I am a business operator, and I operate, in a market economy, but this country is not capitalist. The country is not, because of the way that the society is governed, right? And, I forget his name. And he said, in the United States, you can change parties, but you can't change policy. In China, you can't change parties, but you can change policy. And the Summit for Democracy, right? In the Summit for Democracy, right? I mean, just as one of the things that makes the West. Why am I saying this? Why am I talking about Democracy Summit, right? With Biden and all of these freaking $10,000 wine sipping, they live clowns, right? Why am I talking about these, skeletal, rotten flesh-faced people that have, Cracker Jack Dakota rings that make them look like humans in their little Democracy Summit, right? At the G7 bullshit meeting, right? What is this Western barbarism meeting masquerading as a Democracy Summit? Well, I mean, because democracy, this is like, it's a tool, and being told that things are good when you know that they aren't, being told that things are democratic, it kind of makes it worse, right? It would almost be nicer. That's why I kind of, when Donald Trump, it's kind of like freeing. It was almost like a breath of fresh air. It's why a lot of people voted for Donald Trump when he became president, because finally we don't have to live with this Dakota ring activated, and we have to pretend to look at the presidents and the business people and the politicians who run the Western world, right? The so-called people that lead the so-called free Western liberal democratic capitalist good world, right? And we don't have to like pretend, and we have to like look at them and pretend like they're good, right? You could just look at Donald Trump and go, oh yeah, that's actually how we are, because you know how you are, you know how your country is, you're the number one fucking evil. I mean, look at the statistics. And then, or you can not look at it and, but I mean, if you have any level of intellectual honesty, you know that this is what the truth is, right? And and so it's actually worse sometimes, inside, because when you have if you're somebody who is intellectually honest. Now most Americans, I don't know, most Westerners, they're not really intellectually honest, unfortunately, or they just subconsciously suppress this. But if you are one of those people, it's kind of like I'd rather just see what we are, and that way we have a more chance of making a change. But when you have these democracy summits that are about pontificating about the moral superiority, the civilizational superiority and exceptionalness of the Western system, it's infuriating, right? It's demoralizing, right? Because you have to watch not only how terrible you are continue to exist, your terrible, businesses and government continue to exist, but you also have to be subjugated to being forced to lying about who you are to yourself, right? And that's a whole nother level of humiliation. Anyways, and it causes even more frustration. Anyways, so I try to find this one on this so-called democracy summit. NFT. Yeah. Oh crap! I don't think I have it. But anyways, so at the democracy summit, there was a lady who talked about how. Let me see if I can get the actual one so I don't misquote somebody. Is about democracy requires a party losing. It's pretty ridiculous, right? A party has to change power. In order to have a democracy, I can't remember who said this, but in order to have a democracy, you need to have parties losing and then changing power, right? Sorry, what was that? Yeah, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Right. Yeah, Marjorie Taylor Greene, democracy. I'm just gonna try to get it up there. Yeah. So in order to have, okay, I can't fucking find it. Okay, who cares? In order to have a democracy, is this some person at the Summit for Democracy from the United States? You have to have changing parties. So one of the two parties has to lose, and the other one has to win, and then the other one has to win, the other one has to lose. That's kind of like what we've gotten, right? So you have Democrat, right? You have George H.W. Bush. You have Ronald. Oh my God, these Republicans, they've wrecked the country. We're living in a Reagan-Thatcher dystopia. Oh, the 80s. Oh my God, look at this inequality through the roof. Oh my God, they've eviscerated the flight traffic controllers union, and our collective bargaining is falling apart, and we're all living in Roddy Piper's shit besmeared sidewalks and trash strewn homeless tent cities surrounded by these they live aliens. Oh my God, the 80s is so terrible. Neoliberalism was a mistake. Oh, let's change. Oh great, now we have Bill Clinton, and now it's the 90s, and things are they weren't really getting better. People just remember it that way when they watch the liberal or Democrat run media. Things actually didn't get better, and then not really, ultimately, not for the majority of people. And then oh well, let's try the other thing again. Let's try, right? We're changing parties. Now we're voting for George W. Bush, and now we have a 82 IQ. IQ is a bullish measurement, but he's an idiot. Is our children learning? Watch me smoke them out playing golf while the Twin Towers burn. Clown of neocon. Ghoul warmongers like Rumsfeld to pretend like America has a democracy, right? And you can have a beer with George W. Bush, right? So you get George W. Bush. Republicans, okay, now, and that's not working out. Now now we have thousands of people getting killed. We're starting a forever $21 trillion war. We're massacring Muslims in Abu Ghraib, and all of the FBI's agents, whatever they weren't doing, looking after whatever tiny little fraction of their job that they were doing, actually pursuing Forbes 500 executives, right? What actually most of their police do is just actual anti-corruption and stopping capitalist overreach and overpowerment. You know, and the FBI that was barely doing any white-collar crime and organized crime investigations, suddenly every single agent went straight on to surveilling every Black Panther and potential terrorist and Homeland Security, and you have this defense state and all this money flowing into national security, intelligence, all of Edward Snowden's antagonists, making PRISM and this, building up this huge surveillance state. On top of the military-industrial complex growing as you make 7 wars on 7 different Middle Eastern/West Asian countries in 7 years. Oh my God, this is a disaster. And now economic financial collapse as all of the richest that are not being watched by the so-called enforcers of the law. There's never been any law in the West, but oh my goodness. And now Wall Street is exploding as Lehman. You have the dominoes falling of the subprime, no income, no jobs, no assets crisis is at $7.50 an hour. Applebee's waitresses are given $1.5 million Floridian mansion loans, and then repackaged and all that debt dumped into your mommy and daddy's 401ks and your firefighter, teachers, and nurses pension funds, and all your municipal bonds that are all gone. And that's why you have rotten streets and no house, and your roof, your foundation falling off. Your boards literally, you have like no wall on half your house, right? Like you go back to Oahu, you want to live like that, and go back to like California, go back to Florida, see how everything's doing, and then you're like, oh my God, this 2000s was terrible. Let's try the other party, right? And then you vote for Barack Obama, right? And then you get 8 years of that, and oh my God, it's not actually gotten any better. Now we're all even poorer, and now we have the lost 20 teens. Oh well, let's try that. Oh my God, this Trump guy. And it's like, the thing is, it's like the West is just Trump, period. It's like worse than Trump, because Trump is not even competent at running imperialism. But you're changing parties, You're going from Democrat, Republican, Democrat, Republican, Democrat, Republican, right? And this is supposed to be democracy, right? That's what democracy is to the Western world. It's literally voting for Coke and Pepsi, Immortan Joe. It's a dystopia. But it's a dystopia where one day it's with Immortan Joe, and the next day it's it's Immortan Joe one day, and the next day it's the CEO of Mancorp, like in Tangrowth, speaking of dystopias, right? And then, oh my God, this Mancorp guy is terrible. Let's try someone else. Who else is there? Let's try how about Toe Cutter from Mad Max 1, right? Let's try Toe Cutter. Oh my God, how about Satan? Let's try Satan. Oh my God, he's terrible, and everybody's heads on pikes, and he's like taking everyone's immortal soul and like auctioning it off to the highest bidder, like a Wall Street executive, taking everybody's water and housing and all of Greece's hospital money and then sticking it in his motherfucking pocket. Oh my God, Satan's running. Oh, let's try someone else. Let's Galactus, maybe. Galactus. That's the Western world, right? And then everyone has to eat garbage and believe that that's a good system. See, the Republicans, they have the good common courtesy to just destroy anyone's ability to get voting rights in Texas that isn't white, right? We want power and control of the whitest, and in particular the richest and the whitest, and the maddest and the richest and the whitest, and that's what this is, and that's why the Republicans have to be reined in, because if that it loses internationally the facade that there's any kind of ethical or moral or anything good in the West, and it rips the facade away that you're just a giant. You are Satan, and you are the devil. That's why the rest of the world calls you the Great Satan, because that's what you are. That's why you love dystopias, right? If you love dystopian movies about that, because you want to watch your hell come to fructify. You want to watch your Satan shitscape go away. You want to watch your Star Destroyers burn, right? You want to watch your stormtroopers all get massacred, right? By your fellow stormtroopers. It's called Thunderdome. It's called 2 stormtroopers enter, 1 stormtrooper leaves. And all these people are terrible people because you're terrible people, right? And if you not personally, but the way that your societies run, and if you do well in the Western world, you become a terrible person. So you want to watch it all die, right? And the job of the Democrats is to make it seem palatable so they can continue to plunder while not being different. Is to put makeup onto, that's what I call it, is Emperor, you know, it's to put makeup onto Emperor Palpatine. You know, it's to put happy faces on the Stormtrooper mask. It's to put a thumbs up and a rose and a trans lives matter on the side of a cop badge, right? A U.S. cop badge in particular. You know, that's the Democrats' job, is never to get better, and you never will. There won't be a Western world soon, and it's just gonna all burn, and that's sad. But that has to happen, and then there will be an indigenous federation of Anishinaabe and Cree and Belt and Road of, you know, Nicaraguan, you know, one of the largest canals that surpasses Panama in trade, and a nuclearized with Russian uranium reactor power in Nicaragua, making global South socialist countries nuclear in Central and South America. So that's the end of the West. It's already over. Thank God. You know. And even the ex-UN weapons inspectors, I was listening to what's his name, Steve. Let me get his actual name. I was listening to Scott Ritter, who is a former UN weapons inspector, like works directly at the highest levels of the U.S. Intelligence community, and was deployed in the to work with the intelligence for the U.S. military in Afghanistan as well, and it was disgusted with it. You know, Colonel Wilkerson could tell you all about this. These are people that have they're like the Voltaires of the U.S. military-industrial complex. They're like, this is a disaster system. I don't even know what we are trying to do here. You know, I went into this U.S. military trying to defend. You know, it's people you go in when you're 18 years old, 20, 22 years old. You're like, maybe I know there's some problems in the United States, but maybe I can go into U.S. intelligence. I can go into the CIA. I can go into the DoD think tanks, and maybe I'll make a difference. And then you discover that you won't make a difference. And then you just get frustrated. And then you go on RT and fucking spill the beans to the gray zone, you know? And you're like, fuck this place. You know, you're like Michael Hudson. You go to Wall Street, and you're like, fuck, I'm Voltairing. You know, I'm going to say that the Louis XIV, his name is Jamie Dimon, and, you know, Jay Powell, and these clowns over there in Wall Street, and all of DC and Nancy Pelosi and Clintons. These people have no clothes, but then you have to run away to you have to get a job in China. You have to get a job in a normal civilization, you know? That's what Michael Hudson did. He's an advisor for the Communist Party. And he said, hey, this is what they're going to do. 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 And don't do this, right? Don't let Evergrande and giant private equity firms control your entire economy, real estate, education, tutoring, and big tech. Do this, and that, you know? And so, you know, and so, and they can tell you, the U.S. and Europe that works with it cannot do all the things that they want to do. You know, they're making talk. Biden and Germany, right, and the EU representatives, Australia, Canada, they're talking tough to Russia. They're like, we're gonna stand up to Putin. We're gonna fight war in Ukraine. No, you're not gonna fight war in Ukraine. You have like 1/10 the tanks and the military, and the U.S. Scott's like, oh my God. The U.S. military is about as trained as, you know, like a company of untrained Boy Scouts with a pea shooter and a rubber band gun. The U.S. military couldn't stop two goat herders with $200 billion worth of aircraft carriers, Tomahawk missiles, and fucking the biggest, you know, railgun cannons, and, you know, NFT shooting freaking, you know, NFT shooting fucking Tomahawk missiles. They couldn't stop a bunch of goat herders in Afghanistan. How the fuck are they? They're gonna fight. They're not gonna fight. They're not gonna back Ukraine and Russia because they're gonna die in a nuclear war, and they're not that stupid. And Ukraine sure as, anyways. And he's just like, this is an embarrassment. This is a joke, and you're not gonna stop. If you cut off Russia from building Nord Stream, if you try to sanction Russia, everyone in Europe will freeze in the dark, and your entire economy in Europe and America will collapse more than they've already collapsed. You'll just be fully dead. Russia's the number 2 supplier of energy to the United States, by the way. And Europe needs it. And so anyway, that's kind of off topic, but, you know, it's important to remember that they're not worrying about the end of the world in places like this global south. They're not worrying about this dystopia. You should be, I mean, you should be worried about dystopia. You should be worried about where you're going to get the food and your energy and stuff in California, in Austria, and in Denmark. If your government does something incredibly stupid, like think that they keep flouting this great hand that they have called a collapsed military, a bunch of printed fiat, you know, central bank quantitative easing infinity, worthless confetti that they call the US dollar, your dying world reserve currency of the US dollar that you can use to sanction people. That's not working anymore. All Honduras, Nicaragua is a Panama Canal, as I mentioned earlier, is a competitor with interoceanic travel between the Pacific and the Atlantic. Bigger than Panama, it's slated to be. Nicaragua has unrecognized Taiwan and recognized China as one country. De-recognized the ROC of Taiwan, flipping the side. This is accelerating faster than anybody could have thought. I mean, if you watch how the Berlin Wall fell, this is how the U.S. is going to go. If you watch how Britain fell, with its charades over there in the Suez, right, trying to hold on to its straits, right, it's lanes of travel that it uses to control global economic commerce, right, particularly the flow of energy and oil in particular through the Suez. And that backfired as actually Russia, in collaboration with countries down there, said, no, you're not going to do this. We're going to do whatever we want. The United States, that's why the United States is allowing all of its troops to be poisoned. 93,000 people to suffer chemical burns from spilled jet fuel in Hawaii, is because if the United States lets the rest of the world know that actually the U.S. military is not full spectrum dominant, including over its own population, that signifies the full end of the U.S. empire. And then everyone will just run roughshod over the U.S. empire, as they should. And there won't be a base in Guam, and there won't be a base in Okinawa, right? Because there shouldn't be one, because that's illegitimate occupation, like the U.S. illegal occupation of sovereign Hawaii. So, the rest of the world is not worrying about the end of the world. The rest of the world, right? We, the native Hawaiians, the Nicaraguans, right? These oppressed Bolivian indigenous peoples and their socialist movements, right? That have AI operated glass making factories that are bottling soft drinks, and they will be bottling their own indigenous themed and colored drinks that they will invent with artificial intelligence made by indigenous engineers, programmers, and intelligent. Like I'm an indigenous software and artificial intelligence programmer, and there's indigenous Bolivians that are using that money made from the AI-powered indigenous socialist glass factories to fund national education to further increase their development, and in partnership with China and the rest of the global socialist anti-imperialist world that are all former colonies of Europe and Euro's descendants like US. These people Bolivians are not worried about dystopias, you know? They're not why they gotta worry about this? They're not looking at that. They don't hate themselves, you know? They don't look in the mirror and go, we are terrible Bolivians. You know what they do? They look in the mirror and they go, we actually fought bad people. You know, I had the whole stream the other day about like the people who actually fight empires, right? Like that's why I'm making a game about the decolonizers, that where you play a Vietnamese women soldier for the Vietnamese communists, right? Because you actually fought the United States. So you don't have to feel, you don't have to watch, the Vietnamese people don't have to watch shows about how all of the Vietnam actual successful land back, where everybody gets a 500, where they took the land from the landlords, all the feudal lords, right? All the Jamie Dimons and the Baron Montesquieu's and the Roman oligarchs and the Roman centurion emperor wine sipping after they're done stabbing everybody who didn't do what they wanted in the throat with the phalanx Roman gladius or a spear, right? In Vietnam, they already took all of the worst Roman Caesars and all of the French Louis the Sun King the 14th, and they took all of the billions from all the Bezoses. They took all of the Nancy Pelosi's, 500 pails of, $300 per cup gold-plated triple fudge chocolate ice cream out of her little private COVID bunker, right? They've already taken the land back in Vietnam and redistributed it under the national leadership of their communist party state that does actual democracy. This is what they call it whole process democracy in China. And Vietnam, it's a slightly different system, but it's not that different because they have a communist party. And under a successful revolution undoing the bourgeois and the actual landlords and the capitalist class to subjugate it under the actual democracy of the people, which doesn't change parties but changes policies, right? Which is the important thing, right? Changing parties is important. It's like would you rather have would you rather like be able to have a lunch, and the lunch has it's either every day you can have a You can have a Oscar Mayer, or you can have a Oscar Mayer, or you can have a ballpark lunch, right? And each day you get a Oscar Mayer shit sandwich, or you can have a ballpark turd dog, right? And that's what you can choose one of those two every day. How nice! You have the freedom of choice. You know, you have the freedom of choice. You have liberty now. You can have baked feces in moldy old bread and eat shit in sandwich. Like maybe a bagel, like a rotten bagel with shit in it. Some days that's freedom of choice. 57 flavors of shit. And the next day you can have a ballpark, right? You can change party, right? But you're eating shit every day, right? See, and China, like, oh my god, it's so disgusting, because all you can have is you can have Chinese, and you can have ramen, you can have bok choy, you can have stir fry, you can have kung pao chicken and beef. Oh, but it's actually food that is good for you, and it tastes good, and has vegetables, and it has spices and seasoning, and it's not boring, bland, sad ass white British needing to look more elite than all of their common peasant hoi polloi. And that's why you don't get to have any spices anymore, despite you fought war, killed people for a spice trade. Anyway, that's an aside. And in China, Vietnam, you can't change the party. Oh, you mean I can't have a new brand? I always have to have the Chinese Communist Party brand. But you have a wide variety of food, actually wider variety of food. Actually, so China's actually policies has varied much more widely than the US or anywhere in the West has, even in the last 7 years. I can't have a different brand of food. I only have to have Chinese Communist Party Kung Pao chicken, and I can have burgers, and I can have tacos, and they actually have food in it, But I don't change the party. That's not democracy, right? But that's the trick. Is like, literally, it's all airbrushing. The U.S. there's no such thing as democracy. There's never been any democracy anywhere in the West. This is a total, absolute joke. It's always been the richest and the whitest that have always been in charge, right? But you get to change party. You get to change brand. You can have a shitty, oh my god, I want to stop working for Blizzard. I'm going to go work for Activision. Right? That's your choices. For gainful employment under large, successful companies, right? You can have, you want this shitty company, you want that shitty company. Oh my god, I can't work for the US military. Well, I guess I'll go be a cop and round up black people for the for-profit slavery system. Because slavery never ended in the United States. They just passed the 13th Amendment and had our behind the scenes stealth forced labor in where it's not out in the open. It's kind of like chain gangs are behind the closed doors. Not so much behind the closed doors when they have to put out all of Nancy Pelosi's and Kamala Harris's and George Lucas's wildfires after he made billions of dollars while John Carpenter made like $10. For They Live. When you have this idea that you have democracy in the West is and it's really, I wish that I'm glad that Luna and the people of Asia and other actual successful democratic regimes and democratic countries and actual socialist countries that actually have like normal human civilizations in them, like Bolivia and Cuba and Vietnam and China, that they're kind of saying, no, we actually have democracy. It's a different kind of democracy, right? It's the whole process where everybody's involved every step along the way at integrating their ideas and their needs through direct interactions in their local communities, through the people's organizations. 1 out of every 9 people in China, which 1 out of every 15 to 20 people in Vietnam is a member of the Communist Party. Luna's father was a member for a point. Everybody is directly involved, and it actually responds. What matters is that it responds to the people, right? If you click, again, saying that you can have you have the freedom of choice between Oscar Mayer shit sandwiches and ballpark turd dogs, right? That doesn't mean that you have good. I mean, that's like saying, well, look, you see, now I have a healthy selection of food. Well, your ruling oligarchy are choosing 2 different brands to serve you the same shit. You don't change the policies, and they're all shitty policies. Let's 70 million people become malnourished in 2020 in the COVID-19 pandemic. Let's let 800,000 people die. That's a great, right? That's your shit sandwich that you got to eat. Did it change between Trump and Biden? Not really. What we require would be the non-pharmaceutical measures and interventions and really prioritizing people before profit, which China did. It's just 2 different flavors of shit, just like it always has been, right? Like every time you've ever voted and changed these parties. The shit has only gotten shittier. The shit, now, with 25% more shit. Like, look, military budget, another $30 billion. It's like, U.S. military is like, can we have 750? Congress is like, oh no, please, add another 30 billion pounds of shit to the shit sandwich that we're gonna serve up. It's called all the gasoline that used to be the potable water of Oahu. And so everybody can now drink poison and die, and all the children can have rashes, and their dogs must be put down because they're having like neurological spasms, and everybody's dying and suffering. And I don't mean to make light of it, but it's that's my family that's all suffering. I just talked to them, and they're like flipping out. They're not flipping out about it, but I know they have to worry about it. But they are right next to Red Hill, so that's a shit sandwich that you're gonna be constantly served, and it will never get better. And so then you make dystopia, you watch dystopias, and you play dystopias, and you think about dystopias, and all the movies are dystopian. There's no positive American movies now. Everything about the future is dystopian. That's why America lives in the past, right? That's why it's like Marvelous is Mrs. Maisel, the Scarlet WandaVision is about 50s America, right? It's about going back to this great apple pie, right? Black Widow is about apple pie, going back to the good America, right? Stranger Things is all about an 80s America, right? All this good time, right? When we fought Russians and they were the bad people, and the Russians didn't have our fucking balls on a goddamn a leash because they have all the energy and they have a functioning military, and we're a bunch of clowns wasting all the money because of our capitalism, not even having an efficient military. I think as Scott said, the only thing, the F-35 is a shining example of every piece of equipment getting worse. Every year, this is somebody who was a very high-level member of the U.S. military, said, we have $760 billion budget. Our military is getting worse every year. This confirms what I've done streams explicitly about what neo-feudal capitalism means. Yanis Varoufakis calls it techno-feudal post-capitalism. Something it has different variety of names, but it's more money going into a thing, but the product getting worse and worse and worse, right? So the corporations are not even making money to make products. They're making money to destroy products, right? Like even the U.S. aircraft carriers. The USS General Ford aircraft carrier doesn't function. Compressed air catapults that were tried and true and worked on previous aircraft carriers, because of this emphasizing of high-tech, ultra-high-tech, non-fungible tokens. Oh my God, look at this cool. But not even using not the technology is bad, but the hyping up high-tech. Oh my, look at this. We have a very fancy railgun, but the railgun doesn't work. And it's over budget. And then the aircraft carrier, like your video games like Cyberpunk 2077 or Battlefield 2042, which is a shambles, I hear, full of bugs and everybody's quitting, and the game is terrible. The game is terrible. I'm glad that it's quitting. I'm glad that Battlefield 2042 is a failure, like the new F-35 and the USS General Ford aircraft carrier, right? Because that more Star Destroyers crashing into each other, or capitalism putting like pieces of duct tape around a RC motor calling that a star destroyer, right? And crashing means less empire destroying people, right? So that's fine. It's not fine because I don't want people to be oppressed in their jobs, but also if the U.S. and capitalism eat itself, then good riddance. So, but yeah, that's what the USS General Ford is, a piece of shit. The railgun don't properly function. The F-35s are the F-35s themselves are like defunct, and they're multi-billions of dollars worth of U.S. spend. $780 billion budget. The F-35s represent multi-billions of those decades of budget mal-spent, right? To produce in the same way they produced. I love the Boeing Boeing 737 because it's as part of the aeronautical industry that America has dominated, and now it doesn't anymore because of its capitalism and its neo-feudal kind of style capitalism. It doesn't even dominate that anymore. And the F-35s all have to go into, they are all being iced. And they're like, an F-35 was launched off the coast of Taiwan, off the coast of, in the South China Sea during this belligerent Opium Wars, ill-advised nonsense, Opium Wars 3.0 bullshit that they can't do anymore because the rest of the world has gotten wise to this Western barbaristic imperialistic nonsense, and they got defensive mechanisms to stop that, military and otherwise. And the F-35 nosedived off because they didn't put the rain guard up properly. The F-35, when it was taking off, and partially the railgun apparently is part of this problem. This new high-tech U.S. military aircraft launching mechanism, right, malfunctioning on top of the aircraft malfunctioning at the same time. The F-35 just nosedived into the ocean, and it's somewhere rusting at the bottom of the poison sea, like I mentioned earlier. I think, right? It's just down there collecting, blobfish and little bits of dead troopers that died in all of America's other wars, like, I don't know, fighting, backing fascism with the KMT against the communists in China, like America always does, like the West always does. And so the only thing that the U.S. military apparently is good for now is putting money in the pockets of the military-industrial complex, putting money in the pockets of war profiteer capitalists, right? This is what the Romans, this is basically the same thing. The Roman military was there to get and control land and territory, to extract economic resources and draw them into the imperial metropole of the Roman capital for the oligarchs that were there, and Rome cannibalized itself. At the end, there were Roman insurance companies actually that would burn down parts of Rome and collect on the money that they made, destroying their own infrastructure, their own, like, kind of like Build Back Better, not being built back. In America, letting the infrastructure go, right? You have PG&E, right? Millions and millions of people without electricity in the middle of wildfires because the energy company is making money not producing functioning electrical grids that are woefully out of date, not maintained, not fixed, and then the electrical wires are just gone, and then they have to turn off, and the grid is not up to date, falling apart, and they have to just turn off all the electricity to people rather than see massive destruction of their broken infrastructure. Same thing in Texas this year, right? But that's the same thing that Rome did at the end of its empire, and Britain has had similar processes as they just liquidate. And so, anyways, the neo-feudal phase is liquidation of whatever capital wealth has been able to accrue in the building up of the empire, the roads, the roads that Rome built throughout Europe, and that represents everywhere, that every indigenous society that was once existing in relative peace or not as violent, eradicated, right? All of the Gaelic, all of the cultures that once were in the south of the British island, annihilated by Rome and replaced with new Romanness. They called itself Britishness, right? The new Romanness that they called themselves the French Empire, right? The Merovingian. The new Romanness that replaced all of what once was Europe and fought and killed and might make right and barbarized itself with a variety of different PR, right? Sometimes they call it, well, we're all good Christians. Sometimes they call it, well, we're democratic now. Well, sometimes they call it, well, we're civilized. Well, but they never were. They're always these terrible people with better PR. And so the United States is going the same way that all of Rome's descendants that kind of go the same way. America is doing that. And but not it's not only that, it's all of that 2,000-year process, right? It's the Romans really have never died. It's literally the Holy Roman Catholic Church, which is the Holy Roman Catholic Empire, right? And that's who my father works for. But this will be the final phase of that. This will finally be the end of that imperial complex. As the end of, because people go, oh well, China will just be the next hegemon. China will just be the next superpower that will dominate the world and subjugate it, and Americans will all become enslaved. This is when people worry about land back and Black Lives Matter really gaining power. It's like, oh well, the black, people like Vosh say, oh, you motherfucker, black people, you're gonna do the same thing to us that we did to you. This is where they're wrong, right? This is the end of that process. And when people say, when white people say things like that, if we let black people and brown people, the brown land back, black liberation, Asian communism rise, if we let India come out from being coolies and oppressed from Britain, and now they're British implants, and British and EU and US and G7 puppet regimes down there, if we let all these people come out from under this, well, you're gonna do the same thing that we did to you. That's the thing where they're wrong. It's like, no, it will not be a dystopia for you when the West collapses. In fact, it will be the first time that the West will have an opportunity to participate in a normal, healed civilization that doesn't hate itself. You won't have to hate yourself anymore. It's like it's very difficult to comprehend. It's basically almost impossible. If you live in a very white area of U.S. or Canada, it's why there's some people that just want to watch it all burn. The anarchistic tendency is a natural tendency. I'm not saying there's something like wrong. There are things that have to be removed, But the only and that's why they kind of when those kind of people, when the white suburban left looks at Vietnam, China, somewhere outside, all they can see is, well, you should fall too because you're all bad, right? They can't see the difference between who they are versus who, like, indigenous and formerly colonized indigenous. Indigenous is a complex word, but that's basically, the way I use it, that's what it means, right? The people that have been oppressed and colonized, and to a large extent because they were not people who were barbaristic, right? Who operated by mates, right? Who then excelled at mass violence, right? And so, if you're from inside the United States, inside Canada, even inside the UK, and a lot of there's a tendency to want to rip it all down, right? So Alan Moore is an anarchist, it's a natural tendency inside of hell, inside of a hellscape. But when you're outside and you like when you get to the point of like having grown up as a people and a civilization to having like a mostly functioning in harmony and mostly functioning by, for, and of the will of the people collectively, not perfectly, but more from the commanding heights, at the highest levels overall, you're functioning better, than as a community, as individual communities, and as an entire nation, and then also internationally. You don't really. Why do you don't hate yourself, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't want to throw Molotov cocktails through every window, right? You don't want to blow up the government. I mean, no, I probably shouldn't say that because it's probably gonna get the stream center. Like Guy Fawkes. You don't want to do what happens in V for Vendetta, which was written by a British anarchist. His name is Alan Moore, famous comic book writer. V for Vendetta, Watchmen. He also hated his own comic book industry. He said the comic industry is filled with people who write valiant superheroes and saviors who themselves are cowards under an oppressive corporate entertainment business, who wouldn't even stand up for Jack Kirby and all these other artists. Alan Moore, he wrote this diatribe against the entire comic industry, against the Hollywood that made all of its comic book movies, from all the Avengers and all these giant superhero movies. And he's like, he's not wrong. Kind of like John Carpenter wasn't wrong about all of the people in Hollywood. And these people are all freaking liches and disgusting, eldritch. William Burroughs called them the mugwumps. They're like sucking the blood and lifeblood off of everyone around them, and they're kind of this alien race that have taken over, and they run. It's just called whiteness and capitalism, and just normal Westernness. Just being successful in America or anywhere in Europe or the West. It's called being a horrible person, and then having a culture and a systemic method of maintaining that power, evolving with full spectrum dominance of your own population. Right? Same thing you do to other countries, but just doing it to yourself. And so like, it's natural to want to, to hate that and to criticize that and to make dystopias, right? Like Watchmen is a dystopia, and then it ends with everybody getting nuked. Not everybody, but a lot of people getting nuked. I have a mouth and I must scream, right? But that's because that you are filled with you and everyone around you, right? As I said, if you aren't a terrible person, you have to do terrible things. And either you like it or you don't like it, but that's what you're going to do, right? You work for a corporation, you are joining in capitalist exploitation. If you're a manager, you are making a lot more money benefiting from that. If you're in the police, you are rounding up slaves and breaking unions and strike workers. You're stopping the working class from getting their full labor value, and you're stopping black people from existing by George Floyding them, and then you're rounding up slaves. That's what you do as a police officer. You enforce the landlord's rights, right? Because you are an emissary of a broken people, a broken world. It's called the Western world. And so you hate yourself, and you hate, and if you are on the other side of that, if you are somebody who's more marginalized, if you're trans, if you're black, if you're any of these, you lose centrality, you lose your whiteness card. Whiteness as a, not just being low, middle, and account, as a structure of identities and hierarchies and positionality that maintains that is centered and that is deserving of personhood, right? And if you are outside of that, then you have even more reason to look at this and go, oh my God, this has to be ripped apart. Especially if you spend some time as a white man and then you became not one anymore. A lot of trans people who are white learn about how their world actually works, because it's a very important point that actually gets brought up in that talk called is the white protagonism and imperial pleasure. White people can choose, white men in particular, can not out of the closet straight, or not out of the closet if you're gay. Cis white men, you have the ability, especially, but not you can do this to a certain extent if you're white. You have any proximity to it. You have the possibility of never recognizing and enduring discomfort and career, economic, and social losses, right? You can just live happily in the Matrix. You can like just enjoy it and just be a white person. Now it's getting harder because your white world's falling apart. But if you are an Indian woman in the UK, you don't have that option. You will always be on the outside. You are always an immigrant. You are always a non-full person, right? In that system. And so you can't really choose to ignore it. Race is always there, right? So they say in a lot of these games they try to erase race. Like it's not noticed. It's like you can play a black Vietnam veteran. I think it's in the Division. Actually, there's another game that's not like that. But it's basically like you can play a black person, you can play a white person, but the race doesn't really impact the world. That's a big problem I had with The Expanse, right? You can be brown or Asian or black or white or any color in the Belter, in the Earth, or in the Martian world, right? There's Maori Martian women and there's white Martian dudes, and everyone is just kind of the same, and nobody notices race. It's all the same thing. There's white people that speak African crossed with Chinese dialect kind of thing, and that actually, you can tell it's written by two Gen X white dudes with a lot of privilege, which it was. It was written by two white Gen X nerd science fiction dudes, right? With nice careers behind them, right? Lots of books they've made and sold and have their nice little careers behind them. It doesn't really deal with the actual experience of being an Asian woman or a black man or somebody from the global south or somebody who doesn't speak English very good. It doesn't really deal with what that actually means, right? It just glosses over it and says that doesn't exist anymore, right? And so that's very convenient. But these are not things that can be glossed over if you live in the real, actual racist, imperialist, capitalist world, which are all tied together. Racism is the language of war, as our good friend Danny Haifong, an actual journalist, one of like maybe 10 in the West, has said. And not him, but it's very important to recognize that these are all tied together, and that this is all part of the dystopia. And when you get on the outside of it, you realize how dystopian your world actually is. And if you're in it, you can choose to ignore it, but then eventually, sometimes you watch movies about seeing it all burn because you know how fucked up it is, right? Even if you are a white dude, you might have to still work under a richer, whiter dude, and you can still see that that's unjust. Even being somebody with good middle class positionality and cis straight white manness, you might still be under people that are more powerful than you that are maltreating you. And that's just everyone at every step of the way is punching down at each other, and that's the normal state of affairs. Whereas in a normal human civilization, everyone along every step of the way, if you are underneath, it is the responsibility, for Native Hawaiians, we call it the Kuleana. It is the duty of the Communist Party of China, or the Communist Party of Vietnam, or the Communist Party, or the Socialist Party in Bolivia. It is the duty of those people that are higher, even if you're at the very bottom, if you're in the middle, even if you're higher up, to make sure that everyone is respected and treated with respect and assisted and cared about. Especially when people go to Vietnam, they go, oh my God, I never met such a caring people. It's really like people don't care about each other in the West. And not because they necessarily don't want to. You have to, it's dog eat dog, it's knife fight, it's survival of the fittest, right? And it's capitalistic, and everybody punches down, even at the highest level. Everybody's stabbing each other's back, trying to fight for the VP marketing in the corner office. All these movies in the West are all about this. Everybody constantly out for A number one, right? That's also what Escape from New York is, another John Carpenter movie, trying to point out what the West actually is, right? And the West going, no, we're not going to give you any money to tell us who we are, because we can't have cinematic critique of ourselves, you know, in an Oliver Stone or in a John Carpenter movie that gets seen by everyone. And we definitely are not going to have actual critiques in our democratic so-called debates for president or discussions. We're not going to hear what you have to say. We're going to take anybody saying true things like Daniel Hale, put you in prison for 3 years. We're going to take U.S. military troops, dunk you in a fucking box with your Voltaires. You know, we're going to take Assange, we're going to put him in a deep dark cave somewhere for saying true thing. Right? There is, you know, and so, you know, it's the responsibility of in normal human countries with normal democracies, right? They listen to everyone and respond to everybody's needs. That makes it seem like they're super caring, right? But really, it's because you live in a loveless world. They say, I love you all the time in the West. They love to say that in movies, right? You get to hear that every time. But that's because nobody has that in the real world, even between husbands and wives. They all hate each other. Everyone's a trophy wife. Everyone needs to be flipped. Everyone's a ball and chain, you know? Who identifies as a full Westerner and operates under its capitalist structures. Because everybody, that's what you are. Everything is a widget, a cog, a piece of an object that is to be utilized for my personal benefit, for the selfish individual, under a Thatcher-esque Homo economicus, Milton Friedmanian society designed for perfect individual maximization, which maximizes corporate and oligarchic power as the individuals cannot organize together, right? I don't know, in unions or labor movements or communist parties, etc., to push back against the ruling oligarchic elites. And so, you know, anyway, so that's another way to look at it. The Vietnamese are not abnormally caring. The Vietnamese just have normal human society, and you have a broken, sad, messed up one where you have to hate yourself every second of the day and then take Prozac to feel better for 5 minutes, right? Or go drink yourself into a stupor at the happy hour, like Richard Wolff likes to point out. You know, you don't have to constantly get drunk or play shitty Call of Colonialism military recruitment simulators blowing the heads off of brown people in Iraq to feel anything, you know? It's very sad. It's really a suffering of everybody in the West has to be an empty husk of what used to be a person, you know? It's so sad. It's very sad. You can actually have your emotional, your spiritual, and your feeling like you're rooted and tied to something that is good and important. And people do need that, you know, like people, like toxic nationalism and white nationalism, of course, is a problem. And if you come from a barbaristic shit nation like any of the Western ones, then it's not good to be a nationalist. But people need to feel connected to their heritage, their ancestors, part of a bigger project than themselves, the community, their aina, right, as we would say, the makua, to their kupuna. They want to feel, this is a Native Hawaiian words for our parents, our elders, our ancestors. We want to feel like we come, you know, I put this Hawaiian flag up and we want to feel like we can respect that and we know what it symbolizes and we're part of this larger history and culture. People want that. People crave that, right? So everybody becomes part of the like synthetic corporate nations called the nation of Star Trek versus the nation of Star Wars. And there's a movie about it. It's called Fan. So it's Super Fans. Fan. What the fuck was it? The one with Seth Rogen. Holly knows. Was it? Fanboys. You know, it's people become, you know, diehard nationalists for World of Warcraft, and then they go to war with Chinese gold miners that are abused workers by Steve Bannon, right? That were rooted out by the Chinese Communist Party because they care about the people, unlike your government that doesn't care about you. And that's why you're going to die from COVID, wildfires, hellfires, and poison water, and collapsed infrastructure. And that's sad. And then you die in the U.S. military doing war crimes when you sign up for it. So don't sign up for it. So like when you join, you know, so getting upset on Reddit because there are Chinese and Asian players, and then going, I love my EA and my Blizzard. Oh my, I'm gonna die for my Blizzard. That's run by an abusive person. This is a synthetic, corporate, for-profit weaponization of the normal human innate desire to want to feel a part of something. Especially for young men, they want to feel part of some glorious defense as the drones under the queen bee, or not necessarily, that's not really a good metaphor, but as the soldiers defending their families, their country, their nation, right? And the young rootless white males, as Steve Bannon elucidated in his own writings before he weaponized millions of rootless white males on Reddit and 4chan, getting upset about Asians in their video games, cheating, its own deep anti-Asian simmering racism there, and weaponize that to get Trump elected, Bolsonaro, Brexit happened, the alternative for Deutschland, the Nazi Party of Germany, the Nazi Party of Sweden, AFS, Salvini, you have the fascists in Italy coming back. But it was because of the loss of the capacity that the Gamergate and the anti-SJW, all this crap that still runs YouTube's algorithms to this day, right? And it's why people like Quartering have still have a lot of people to be saying nonsense to, is because of an innate desire to be connected to something worthwhile. But people know in the United States that they know there's nothing really to celebrate there, unless you're a fascist, because it's a fascist country. And you know that your military doesn't do anything good, And if you're a nerd, you don't even qualified a lot of times, and you don't even want to necessarily sign up. But you can sign up to join the army that fights for your Star Wars, right? As the fandom menace, right? You can be the army of one, or the army of me and my 4chan and 8chan friends that are gonna go and fight the war on women. We're gonna fight the war on those people that are taking my video games, and my mommy didn't bring me Hot Pockets and Mountain Dew fast enough, right? And you can join this synthetic nationalist project weaponized for Democrat or Democrat capitalists. It's called Disney, and you can weaponize it for Republican capitalists. It's called Steve Bannon and people who are selling ivermectin now, and all of the MAGA people, and Milo Yiannopoulos' career, right? And the Quartering, and you can make money doing that. You can sell tyranny and my freedom of choice stickers, and vaccine is the 666 mark of the beast, and all this bullshit, fighting the great evil, right? That is whatever you want, liberals, Democratic Party, the China, but this is a synthetic constructed nationalism. People actually need that need fulfilled, right? To be part of a bigger thing than themselves, and then it gets weaponized in different ways in a place that doesn't have any legitimate good history, and you have to pretend like Thanksgiving is a good, and it's sad. It's too bad that you don't have that. It's very sad. One day maybe you will, but you can't get there in a place like the U.S. or Canada by denying that it exists. It's just gonna throw you further down the hole, and because the rest of the world is not gonna put up with your lies and your crimes and your exploitation and your colonization and your racism and your capitalist domination anymore. It's not gonna work. So, and so the dystopian. Anyway, so I'm way off my topic. So let me get back to my dystopia. So, but that is the end of the. But so in another sense, when we talk about dystopia, white people in the West, Europeans, Americans, the middle class and upper middle class, or downwardly mobile members of that class, whose daddies were Lockheed Martin, 60, 70,000 a year, and that was enough to afford a house. Workers in the 80s for making missiles. Grandpa was my grandpa, he was just a painter, and he just, all he did was he painted the side of F-35s, and he got a house in the lawn at the age of 20. How the hell? And he had a Thunderbird, and he had his he looked like the Fonzie, he's living the bomb ass 50s, and I'm trying to sell NFT, cyborg monkey, rainbow cyborg monkey, and then that was too gay because all my friends are straight cis white dudes, crypto bros that are failed sons of empire, working out in the goddamn gym, spreading ivermectin laced COVID-19 into each other's mouths. And oh man, my NFT didn't work. What am I gonna do? What am I gonna do, daddy? I don't know, son. I'm a Wall Street trader. What are you gonna do? You're gonna sit in my house and fucking rot in my 7th basement? Dad, okay, Dad. I'll try another crypto scam. Hey, why don't you go and your sister's selling LuLaRoe. They're doing one of those Amway multi-level marketing schemes. Why don't you try that? Okay, Dad. I'll try to sell a robot monkey NFT gym shorts at my CrossFit gym. And then that's not working out too good anymore. So they can see their Western world dying, and so there's the craving for this dystopia where we're all gonna fight this great glorious war. We're gonna come out with the Patriots, and we're gonna have the second January 6th
American, our forefathers and our Jeffersons and our Washingtons and our Abrahams, we're all gonna come out and we're gonna, with the QAnon shaman, we're all gonna fight for the glory of America. And it's very disturbing. I hope you have to, figure out what you're gonna do about that in your falling apart U.S. empire. But it's dystopia. The end of the Western world is not just about the U.S. falling apart. In the 70s and 80s, it was about nuclear war on the horizon in the Cold War and what that could mean, and everybody's freaking out and worrying about it. Which it is a problem, because the United States has hair trigger hundreds, if not thousands, of nuclear weapons ready to go and to be launched in intercontinental ballistic missiles to be fired, and nuclear subs to fire their missiles into China and Russia at any second, which would end the entire capacity for Earth to support life for nuclear winter, everything above anaerobic bacteria for a while, and there won't be any people. As Carl Joss said, if we start nuclear war with China, I'll be the last. We'll all be LARPing Fallout, and I'll be the super mutant coming to hunt down all you motherfuckers in the military-industrial complex that started it. But mostly everybody just will be dead. And if you live, you wish you were dead. So, nuclear war was a problem. And then, there are other aspects. The climate change, fossil fuel, they discovered that the environment and Earth's capacity to sustain life could be destroyed by not only nuclear winter, but also the consumption of fossil fuel. And so a lot of these stories deal with these fears, right? But now you see the dystopias nowadays is more, about the end of the Western world, not so much, and the end of the Western world is not going to come as everybody is playing Mad Max, probably not, you just be closer to what Niger is like than it is now, and some people will get nuts and probably be very violent, but mostly you'll just be hungry and sad and wish you had electricity as you freeze to death in the winter, right? And the communities that get together and band together and do mutual aid and get out from under the West, and the parts of the indigenous, I've made these predictions many times, but I'm kind of not joking about these. When I say like an indigenous federation of economically sovereign and empowered solar panel creation facilities in Anishinaabe territory, actual successful high-speed rail manufacturers in whatever other indigenous federations, the Cree people and the Cherokee areas that used to be Oklahoma, making advanced COVID-19 vaccines and have good healthcare technology. Like the Cherokee and the Blackfoot have like 98% vaccination rates. They actually were vaccinating white people because they were so good at it. And these parts that Bolivia, the South America is even in a better position for this. They're already working. Honduras, Nicaragua, Bolivia, they already are working with the global socialists and end of the Western world. The Eastern and the Southern former colonies, the socialist countries I'm talking about, are working with South and Central American countries. And the parts of North America that are ready to work with, I'm telling you, I want them to work with Hawaii as soon as we possibly can get this. Hawaii is very hard because we have so much U.S. empire here. But if the gasoline, as I said last week, if Red Hill is ever cleaned up and Oahu is ever made not toxic, filled with jet fuel and poison, not only by the fuel, but even worse by the ideology of empire and the white supremacy and the erasure of Hawaiian history. If Hawaii ever gets back to some kind of healed civilization, like indigenous Aloha civilization, it will be with the help of China, with Cuba and Vietnam, materially alleviating poverty by becoming part of the Belt and Road International win-win cooperative trade, where China helps rebuilds infrastructure, helps clean up all the broken water pipes in Maikalihi Valley. And this is how it's going to happen. This is how it's going to happen. It's not like maybe we'll have Mad Max and then 200 years later. No, this is not how it's going to happen. This is how it is happening. This is how Africa, poorer places, then this is why it gives me hope. Poorer and more fucked places than Hawaii in Africa have already been built, and they have better quality of life and lower COVID rates than the United States. Vietnam was poorer than the United States and poorer than Hawaii, and now they're 45 less malnutrition deaths per capita, 1,000 times less homelessness. They have universal health care, and they have like way less COVID-19, and their economy and technology is growing. Inequality, no threat of fascism. And if Vietnam can do that, Hawaii can do this. The biggest challenge to Hawaii is not how much it's gonna cost, how badly, infrastructure and, oh, look at all these ghettos. That's not the question. The question is, how quickly will Hawaiians be able to get out from their whiteness, internalized, because a lot of Oreos and coconuts working for the military, believing wrong shit, in right-wing conservative circles, and a lot of churches, unfortunately, that are spreading anti-vax crap and pro-imperial shit. How fast can American and Hawaiian people stop being kaikahele, working for the U.S. empire and the military, by making the U.S. military look good by saying, oh, look at they gave out 500 water bottles today. Stop doing that, you fucking stormtrooper turncoat fucking Hawaiian. How quickly can they get out from that and join the international successful global socialist anti-imperial movement? But that's hard, because Hawaii is literally the headquarters for the U.S. empire. It's basically what it is. It's the Indo-Pacific Command. It is the launching point for the Asia-Pacific region, which is the region of the U.S. war. It's turned away from Afghanistan. It's turning away. It withdrew from Afghanistan to focus on China and South China Sea, Taiwan, etc. Right? And that makes it hard for Hawaii. But the question is not if Hawaii will get off from it. It's when. How many more Oahu babies need to die? How much worse does it have to get? That's the question that, if you're a Hawaiian and you're watching this, you should ask yourself that. How much longer are you going to not be fully demanding the restoration of the sovereign country of Hawaii, right? And the end of the U.S. illegal occupation. The UN recognizes it. This is the thing. It seems like you're in the minority when you're in Hawaii, right? It seems like you're in the minority when you're in Hawaii, but the reality is that we're not. The United Nations of the planet Earth, which is growing in power as the U.S. and Western imperial unipolar world falls apart, as the NATO collapses and the NATO can't get any. NATO is going to be begging Putin to turn the gas back on when all the lights go out, and all of Angela Merkel's and Macron's and the Austrian president, is freezing to death in the dark. They're going to beg Russia to turn the gas back on. NATO has no fucking power. These are all paper tigers. They're not even paper tigers. America is a paper submarine lit on fire. It's incinerated. It's a pile of ash. It smells like a shit sandwich made by Oscar Rotten Myers, whose executive is running away with money while they put out, fucking melamine and a garbage laden fucking baloney that's being padded, like a crack dealer or a cocaine dealer cutting it with baby formula. The United States and NATO cannot fight any wars anymore. They're gonna lose to China. They've already lost to China. If the second they try to start a war in China, China and Russia are gonna turn off all the electricity and all their gasoline for all their subs and all their semiconductors that come out of fucking China and Taiwan. That's gonna already can't get any of its own policies done. All of its people and all of its businesses, its number one trading partner in China. All their trading. China just has to cut the goddamn shits off, and Russia just has to cut the electricity off. The West is over. It's over. It's done. Native Hawaiians, are you going to be on the loser side and go down with the USS Titanic? People of the country of Hawaii, are you going to continue to lie to your boss because you might makes right, you want to do barbarism? Hawaii's only been a state for what, 40, 50, 60 years at most? It's a fictional state, doesn't even exist. How long is it going to take for Hawaii? How much deeper into the hellscape do you have to fall with America as it goes? The USS Titanic goes down with the ship. It's the things I've been saying for the last several years. Isn't it starting to seem a little less? Is it starting to sink in a little bit? Like a year ago, I had a stream about the USS Titanic. January 2020, I remember January 2020, I did a stream with Camelot. I said the U.S. Empire, 1776. In the 1600s, depending on how you count, 1776 to 2020. Rest in peace, motherfucker. You're over. It's starting to look a little less fiction, a little less hyperbolic now, isn't it? Right? How long you think it's only 93,000 people going to be affected by the U.S. military's toxic dumping? The Board of Water Supply, right? Ernie Lau came out and just said the Halava shaft will be turned off for years, possibly forever. And that's not the only shaft. Do you think the U.S. military is done fucking you? Hell no. Hell no, they're just getting started going down. They got a lot more. Neofeudal capitalism means you will be liquidated, and there's a lot more that will suffer and die, including U.S. military troops. So you should quit. So, how much longer do you want to accept the fiction of the United States illegally occupying Hawaii to your own death and destruction? And how much quicker do you want to get on the right side of history and join your Asian and indigenous and communist and global South relatives that are doing better than Americans? You know, how many times do you have to say? I know that people can't envision this. Even Hawaiians in Hawaii that are fucking coconut white brain, colonized stormtrooper brain, right? You can't get it through your fucking head. Do you want to actually do better, or do you want to work for some shitty news station in Honolulu? Do you want to work for some garbage law firm, being punched down, making a little more money, but you can't afford your mortgage on your Kailua $2 million fucking house, right? How much longer do you want to keep putting up with that shit, Oahu? Loser? Coward? Right? How much longer do you want to keep putting up with that? Or are you going to get out there and be like, and speak openly like I am? Why am I there? You know, not only me, Osario, and fucking Kaleko Kaya, all the Voltaires of the illegally occupied U.S. Western barbarism Hawaii get out the fuck there and say the true thing and get locked up with Kaleko Kaya for speaking Hawaiian at court law. How much longer is it going to take for just me? Why are all these, especially the dudes, I'm calling out all the Hawaiian dudes, yeah, all you fucking cops in your military with you fucking Blue Lives Matter, Hawaiian, Samoan, Tongan, get that shit off, you fucking traitor. You know, stop being a murderer for Empire. U.S. cop. That's also Hawaiian. Kaikahele. Quit the fucking military and get out there on the right side of history before you got on with your shit. No, there's a lot of toxic masculinity for sure in all these cultures. Dwayne The Rock Johnson represents all the fucking Polynesians and all the brown people. They want to go sign up and go murder people for money. So that has to all be interrogated. Also, just because we get off from the United States, there's still a lot of toxic masculinity. There's toxic U.S. military and military period and police worship, toxic domestic violence. There's a toxic anti-homophobia, anti-trans and anti-LGBTQ plus shit in Hawaii as well. That all has to be interrogated in a continued process so we don't become brown America in the future. Because wherever the seeds of, like the British who were scarred and eradicated, the people who used to be indigenous, peaceful, aloha people up there in that island called the islands of the United Kingdom, they were turned into the British Imperial stormtroopers by Rome. So that all has to also be interrogated. And you know that's gonna be a whole process, right? Of coming out from that. If your parents were in the military, your grandpa was in the U.S. military, you were a stormtrooper, and that all has to be interrogated. So, but I hope that happens sooner than later, because the rest of the world is not gonna wait. And Hawaii is a small island, so you don't want to be left behind in this process. Nicaragua, as I said, recognizing Taiwan historically. My family has. I went to a school that was behind, had members that were massacred, not nuns, Marino sisters massacred in Nicaragua, backed by U.S. Right-wing regimes to benefit U.S. imperialism and capitalism. Nicaragua has suffered terribly under U.S. imperialism. It is rapidly getting out from under that. It's having new programs for poverty alleviation. It's getting out from under the U.S. dollar. It's the number one weapon because America can't get its shit done anymore because it's military and the dollar. The dollar even more so. It's world reserve currency hegemony. It's stopping people from doing trade internationally. Is that's all being undone now. Nicaragua is a small country. That's a very, in the gray zone, they brought up a very important point. And Black Agenda Report, they bring this up, which is even small countries like Nicaragua, when joining with international counter-hegemonic forces, like China and not just China, Cuba, Russia, all together, the group of friends in defense of the UN Charter, you can go push back against much more powerful countries. You know, a few million people in Nicaragua versus the US, 300 million, the most powerful empire the world has ever seen. But even there, if you have international support and you have successful, what do they need though? You need internally people to be educated. The Nicaraguans had their election, right? Had a very left turnout. The OAS members, that's the U.S. empire's CIA cutout for stopping any kind of socialism and liberation in South America. And this year they had a big left turnout because in successful socialism, the people are saying no, we don't want any more U.S. imperialism, right? They're getting clean on this. So Hawaii, when are you going to we have to get this shit together and be like, we have to become Nicaragua and stop bowing down for the U.S. military. Everyone in Oahu is over there sucking off the goddamn Uncle Sam, right? Including Kaikahele, right? Who's over there, our so-called Hawaiian representative, right? In the so-called state of so-called fucking Hawaii state. It's not a state, it's a country. You should stop working for that and get on the right side and get down there and get your ass arrested with everybody at Red Hill. You know, if you can. I mean, but no, he's too busy working for the U.S. military, like Tulsi Gabbard. If you ask me about Tulsi is working for the U.S. Empire. and that's part of the. She's a fucking multi-tour U.S. military personnel, and says the U.S. empire is not an empire. We're really great, and we can fix things and wave American flags. And that's why, but that's a normal. Sadly, that's a common thing in the Death Star, which is the U.S. empire headquarters is actually Oahu. It's not even really D.C. anymore. It's really Oahu. And it's in DC, but it's also it's run and managed. The actual military industrial complex managed from here. Indo-PACOM, all the mole people, all the people I can't really talk about. The head of the intelligence agency, all that kind of shit is happening out of here. A lot of it's in it's in California, it's in DC, it's in Hawaii. I can't say where it is, but I know people have worked in it. I have friends that actually work with Edward, not friends that work with Edward, but friends that worked and have worked, and maybe they work somewhere. Actually, I shouldn't have said that. Anyways, Booz Allen. I do know somebody that has worked with intelligence agencies. There's lots of people that work in intelligence in Oahu because it's the goddamn head of the empire. It's the Death Star where they call the shots. Okay, you're gonna send 25 F-22s. Try not to crash half of them because we made them under capitalism and underpaid all of the people who were supposed to bolt the non-tempered steel. I think we used like Mountain Dew aluminum cans to build the F-22's wing. Okay, try not to crash F-22s, but fly them around. Fly them around the ADIZ zone off of Taiwan that's not even legitimate. For freedom of navigation. That's where they call the shot from. It's from Oahu. So if you work on Oahu for the U.S. military, it's some of the worst people there, So it's about, the question is not like, how long will people who are Hawaiian, Japanese, Hawaiian, Chinese, white Hawaiian, whatever your ethnicity is in Hawaii, how long will it take for the people to finally get educated, learn actually what the international, historical, and current political, economic, and cultural reality is, figure out what the Nicaraguans and the Bolivians and the Hondurans are doing, and join the international socialist and win-win cooperative Belt and Road and the New Silk Road. And that requires standing against empire. That requires having actual successful, empowered peoples collectively pushing and taking back their countries. And how long will it take till that happens? It's hard, and it is harder because it looks like there's a city there where you can make money. Wow. The truth is, it doesn't matter how much money you make, you're always gonna be a fucked little Hawaiian in your broken ass rotting house drinking poison water. You're not gonna live like in the Big Island where you have a fucking house that we can live in and it's totally chill and fine. It's not a brand new house, but we can live in this house, and I'm not worried about falling outside of a fucking a wall or drive by huge crime rates, all the people coming parking outside my house, not able to sleep, fucking meth dealer above my meth dealer next door, highway over there, everybody ripping each other off because violence causes poverty. The greatest poverty is the violence visited by the ruling class, which is poverty, and then the poverty creates inside of the class violence as people steal and harm each other. That's what I did in Oahu, was trying to alleviate these problems as a social worker and a STEM teacher for the underserved and at-risk youth and all the Bloods and the Crips and all the 5th grade meth dealers that I was working with. Hey, stop dealing meth, kid. You're poisoning your own community. So, how long will you put up with living in shit despite making $100,000 a year as a Honolulu International Airport United Airlines aircraft engineer? Like I had a white Republican 6'2" cis straight man who lived in a Chevy Suburban in a Walmart parking lot and worked in Honolulu International Airport making $100K a year. So if you're not making $100K, if you're not making $200K in Oahu, you're fucked. So you better hope you can move up and that the inflation doesn't go through the roof and then your money is worthless. And then you're fucking starving, drinking poison water, living in an actually broken another fucking house on Oahu. Or are you going to start telling the truth and not be a little fucking coward, right? White Hawaiians? I'm talking to every Hawaiian right now, by the way. I know they're not all listening right now, but if you're in Hawaii, if you're not in Hawaii, you can spread the news about Hawaii, which is a legally occupied country. Right? Now this is a commercial break for Silver Spook. Talk about Hawaii. We're not talking about dystopia anymore. This is my Silver Spook commercial break. The U.S. is only in Hawaii to fight a hybrid war on China and global socialism that it cannot win. The only question is how many more millions will suffer, including U.S. troops, Native Hawaiians, and everybody in Hawaii, settler or otherwise. As Western capitalism and colonialism bashes its head on the Great Wall of indigenous anti-imperial civilization. Do you want to join the U.S. military? Suicides on the rise as Pentagon officials point to U.S. military stretched by China. It kind of sounds like you're getting weird sex. I mean, no kink shaming for size queens, but I mean, you're getting stretched out by China. Okay, that's kind of gross. But anyway, how many more? Don't join the U.S. military unless you want to commit more suicide. U.S. military members were 4 times more likely to kill themselves. Before that, not because of the PTSD necessarily, but because you know that you're an evil you did evil in the world and you're moral injury because you know you don't support, right? So don't join the U.S. military. China has demonstrated that it developed an alternative, non-Western, non-capitalist model of development without war, invasion, colonization, slavery, regime change, primitive accumulation that the world can emulate and follow. The huggers and the sluggers, those are the Clintonites and the neocons, were wrong. The daggers came out. In 2009, global economy was imploding. China pulled the world out of its death spiral, refinancing U.S. banks, restoring liquidity and integrity to the global system. The ruling classes are desperate in the U.S. to erase China as an example. China offers a threatening alternative model of non-capitalist, non-Western, non-colonial development. It undermines Western neo-colonial domination of the third world and its debt trap-based forced underdevelopment, subservience, and expropriation. Like Nicaragua is going, oh man, we can get out for this, right? Africa is going, oh wow, we can actually have electricity now, right? Hawaii should be asking itself, when are you going to get out from under this? It also offers a model of state-led ecological development, new possibilities of hope and transformation for the world. And the ruling classes will go to war, except this is from like February this year. Now it's looking a lot less like they have the capacity to do this. Not to say that they won't. This is from KJ Knows, a very important ex-military diaspora Korean in the United States that is saying important true things about the West as an analyst. Anyways, Hawaii must be had to get the share of China. So again, if it is that the U.S. #1 enemy, and they say this openly, the West, Europe, all of the West, they know the #1 enemy is China, and Russia to a large extent, and Russia to China to, the U.S. is making a multipolar world into a bipolar world by driving all of the rest of the world together, and it's really, they're accelerating their decline, which is, go ahead, keep doing that, whatever. But this is why they're in Hawaii, to get their share of China, as I always bring up, right? But it's important to remember. And remember that many Americans think that Hawaiians lived in huts prior to colonization. The U.S. actually deindustrialized Hawaii before 1898. We had electricity, mass transit, we had railroads. Iolani Palace had lights before the White House. How long do you want to be de-developed? The sewage coming out of Honolulu, wastewater, so-called management pipes that are now flooding. Recently, in this last big storm, flooded apartments with fecal water. So not only are you eating a Oscar Mayer shit sandwich, with your Democrat Republican choice of Oscar Mayer shit sandwich or ballpark turd dog, right? You can also have exploding. You can have a diarrhea slushy thanks to the unmaintained sewer system of Honolulu. It was flooding like 6 years ago when I was working in STEM in downtown Kalihi, feces water exploding from the storm drains out of your manholes, just filling your apartment. How long do you want to live in that and then get back to, rather than go back to being the most advanced infrastructure, most advanced electricity, and most advanced education with the highest literacy rate? Do Hawaiians, do you want to go back to being an advanced socialist indigenous civilization, or do you want to stay an empire falling apart shitscape? That's what you got to ask yourself. The U.S. military won't acknowledge or clean up its catastrophic gaps. People are talking about Red Hill, right? The U.S. military is leaking massive amounts of jet fuel. I talked about this last week, so I won't belabor that. It will not acknowledge or clean the catastrophic gas spill because it is illegally occupying Hawaii as a platform to plunder China, bomb Vietnam, Korea, and Afghanistan. These are the people that members of the white business community that met in a corporate office to plan a coup against the elected government of Liliuokalani. They were not sure how far they wanted to go, but they had the support of the United States. This is what Hawaii is for. This is what Hawaii is for. It is just a gas station for the Death Star. It's a gas station for Star Destroyers and the TIE Fighters and all the Stormtroopers' weapons to be housed in bunkers. That's what it's for. And they can't even keep its Stormtroopers alive. They're all getting poisoned, right? All of America's Stormtroopers are being poisoned by gasoline, jet fuel, faucet water. How much longer are you going to put up? Do you want to sink with the Death Star to the bottom of the Pacific with the U.S. Arizona? Hawaii this is from the United Nations High Commission on Human Rights. So again, there is a huge possibility now that the world is turning around, right? Now that you have Nicaragua, China, canal. I was trying to find an actual article. There's not a lot of news about it because, yeah, why China's Nicaragua move is as much about the U.S. as it is about Taiwan. China and Nicaragua seal diplomatic ties as Taiwan loses, right? Taiwan loses another partner. So good luck getting your little nuclear war in Taiwan, U.S. military-industrial complex. Good luck with your little game in Taiwan. The rest of the world is not going to join you. They don't want to go down with your ridiculous ship shooting hypersonic missiles through the South China Sea, right? To kill indigenous Taiwanese people who don't want to be killed. By the way, the indigenous people of Taiwan are actually Chinese, and there's Hakka and there's also Han people that have been there for much longer than any of these collaborator and the Dutch imperialists who showed up and the Dutch colonialists who showed up and massacred Han Chinese uprising in what they call the land of milk and honey. How much longer? Not only Hawaii, everybody around the world under imperialism. How much longer will you put up with this? And how much sooner will you start saying and getting everybody to believe, get educated on the truth? How much longer will it take for people in Hawaii to stop disbelieving the lies that have been force-fed down your Hawaiian brain and throat at the threat of, yes, being beaten and having your knuckles shattered like my mother did for speaking Hawaiian, like my father's Damien and other Catholic school classmates who were thrown out of second-story windows and had their bodies broken for being Hawaiian, right? How much longer will you have the Hawaiian Islands, a sovereign nation state within strange form of occupation by the United States, illegal military occupation, and fraudulent annexation? How much longer will you put up with this? It's not even helping you out that much anymore, is it? Huh? Not really. This is, everyone to McKinley. Everybody knows where McKinley is, right? That's a fraudulent treaty of annexation in McKinley, right? Are you going to smile while your son and daughter drink gasoline and die, but you don't realize it, and you come home to internal bleeding and their mommy, my tummy aches, and they throw up? Are you going to let your children be poisoned to death? Oahuan person, Hawaiian, Japanese, Chinese, white, or other mix. You're going to let your family be poisoned to death? The Navy's not going to tell you. They're not telling their own troops. They're not telling they're not telling sergeants in the U.S. Army, naval, enlisted people when they're poisoning it, because it's been years. They're telling the Navy, the admirals were like, the water is fine to drink. We have done tests and the tests have come back negative. They've bald-faced lied. Do you think you matter? As some local, some native, some little brown? No, you're nothing. Are you going to let yourself be poisoned, or are you going to wake the fuck up? Not, even if you don't care about yourself, how about your children? How about your grandchildren? Under international humanitarian law, Hawaii is a victim of denationalization, which is a form of genocide itself. Deliberate campaign of forced denationalization during the Spanish-American War. In 1945, the act of depriving inhabitants of the occupied territory of their national characteristics, but a program that attempted to achieve the result through interference with the methods of education, compulsory education in the language of the occupier, forced English education, ban on using of national press, national language of schools, ban on the national press, right? Printing of distributing of books in the language of the occupied region, removal of national symbols and names, removing of Hawaiian flag, removing of Hawaiian books, removing of Hawaiian anything, removing of Hawaiian words from streets, removing of Hawaiian statues from public places, removing of everything Hawaiian, personal and geographical, interfering in religious services, removing of Hawaiian spiritual practices, force inserting Christianity, force inserting colonizer, so-called civilized ways of being, right? How long will you accept and deny this to your own suffering? Even your own economic suffering now. And not only you, everyone everywhere should ask that. Indigenous people in Turtle Island. There are many people in North America who actually are indigenous, and they have a good percentage, but they bury it and they can call themselves white because they're fairer, or they can get away with it, they just call themselves something else. They just ignore their... Martin Sheen is Mexican, calling himself a white person. He changed his name so he could become famous in America. Whiteness is worth. You want to know how much whiteness is worth? You want to know how much whiteness is worth specifically? It is worth $500,000 more than blackness. That's how much whiteness is worth. Let me show you. Whiteness. A black couple sue an appraiser who valued a home of $500,000 less than a white friend who posed as the owner. A black couple, if you are a white family and you a white person, you want to sell your house, you can get a home appraised at $500,000 higher than a black person. The black couple was appraised at $400,000, and the white person who got it appraised, just posing as the owner, just same house, same fixtures, same lawn, same interior decor, same exterior, same location, right? Same everything. Only difference, white people in front of the house versus black people in front of the house. Less than half. Less than half. That's how much blackness is worth. Less than half than whiteness. And then, oh no, America's not. This is just like the market, This is just like the market value, right? And no, but America is not systemically racist. The racism isn't a problem. No, it absolutely is. It's economic. It's the value of whiteness is literally a lot. So Martin Sheen, right? Who is actually he has a Mexican last name. Martin Sheen. The value of whiteness for him was his entire multi-million-dollar, multi-decade, award-winning movie star career. That's what the value of whiteness was. That's why he changed his name, right? I have an aunt who made millions upon tens of millions of dollars, married into a huge fossil fuel oligarchy, did makeup for CNN anchors and Colin Powell, a U.S. military-industrial complex war criminal. And she is more Asian and Hawaiian than anything else, but she became a white lady, bleached her skin white, cut her epicanthic folds off, made herself look more white, adopted a white accent, and was incredibly racist to Hispanics and black people, and said, "You're a disgusting beaner. Clean up my 25 golden toilet house in her beautiful mansion. You lazy Hispanic." Right? In Oregon, which is one of the most racist places in the United States, it was a white ethno state for a long time. It was illegal to not be white there. And she got her millions and her career. She ran Miss Universe pageants. She has a award-winning international makeup line and beauty line. By becoming a racist Republican married partner to a super racist 7-generation multi-billion-dollar dynasty of white Oregonian fossil fuel and military oligarchs. Literally, the guy who pioneered drilling in Alaska was her husband's parent, her father-in-law, and she got that by destroying her Hawaiianness. Everyone in my family who has any level of capacity of any money and any career and success. I have many multimillionaires. One of them is the Mother Superior for the entire Asia Pacific Holy Roman Empire to this day. She's the Mother Superior for all of the Pacific, Indonesia, Philippines, India. And she got there by professing undying fealty to Jesus fucking Christ, to Catholicism, and Jesus was something else, and then the Romans took him, and he was some brown guy who resisted empire, and the Romans fucking strung him up on a cross like George Floyd on the side of a Nancy Pelosi Black Lives Matter racial healing day with a kente cloth. You know what I'm saying? But what Christianity represents now is the empire. And so anyway, I have a Holy Roman Imperial fucking general. I've got literally general, and my aunt is a fucking G13 in the U.S. military. She has like timeshares on every island. Beautiful Kona, $1 million per quarter acre little resort city she has over there. And other aunt is a fucking, literally does makeup for war criminals like Colin Powell, and is still punching down at Black Lives Matter to this day, getting mad at black people asking for their rights, saying, "Get a job, you lazy black person," to Black Lives Matter activists in Portland. And she's by birth, she's more Asian and Pacific Islander, but she's erased all of that out of her for career and for money. So that's how much whiteness is worth. Whiteness, Westernness is worth. It's about worth 1.5 to 2 times as much as non-whiteness. If you're in the global south, it could be worth a lot less than that. Like maybe 1,000th. Like you make 100th the income as an African. Now in Niger, it's worth 100% less electricity. That's how much it's worth. If you're in India, it's worth about 1/16 the wages, and that's why Apple moves all of its factories there. right? So they can have underpaid Indians making all your fucking apples, and you can watch the stream on a piece of blood mineral mined, oppressed global South worker made shit phones. Anyways, so that's what it's worth, though. That's what it's worth. And so, but you know, even that, even being a Hawaiian pretending to be an American, right, with your stupid Yankee accent that you put on, that like a lot of people did. That's what my aunt did. That's what my family did. They all put on fucking Yankee ass accent. And it became more racist. Sound like a Southerner, right? Now, sometimes it's natural because you work with the U.S. military, because you work in Pearl Harbor, like most of Hawaii works for the fucking U.S. military, being a sellout to the empire, and you're down there in Pearl Harbor, surrounded by fucking white racist neocons, and you're just talking like the people that are in power now. So you're just imitating their, hey, we're gonna get us some Charlies. Let's blow us some sand N-words up in Iraq, and you're like, yeah, and then you come home and you're saying Iraq, you know. Even though you're from Kali, you're from Pololo, you're from Manoa, you're from Kailua, you're from Kaneohe, right? But now you come in and you sound like you're freaking from Mississippi, and you just like shot up a bunch of Black Lives Matter people with Kenosha shooter, right? What the hell? Why you sound like that for? Oh, it's because you're trying to get proximity to whiteness, and make some money in the empire. But again, the important thing is, remember, the U.S. empire is falling. It's gonna be gone soon. It's fucking you. It's the Titanic. It's halfway in the water right now. The question is, and the answer is not like let's all cry and doom out and join the dystopia, right? Back to the main topic. The question is, will you choose to go down with that ship and sink below the waves of climate change, literally as your beachfront property becomes worthless and you can't sell it to Aquaman like Ben Shapiro thinks he's gonna do in Florida? Will you sink below the waves as the COVID-19 continues to massacre over 1 million Westerners, and in China it's 4,000 or less, and they got it under control? Even Omicron, they're under control. Vietnam getting vaccines from China, right? 2 billion to be donated, 600 million to be gifted, donated to Africa, 400 million to be manufactured with Chinese and African joint pharmaceutical ventures. That's even better. You see, that's win-win cooperation. It's not, you see, just giving out charity is not necessarily helping people. Let me tell you, as somebody who gave out charity, to a lot of people, that doesn't necessarily help you. You can even give out free housing. That doesn't necessarily help the people that you're housing, because it doesn't necessarily get them to like contribute their part, and try to like get better, personally and spiritually, emotionally, and, move forward, because we had somebody, somebody was living, and it doesn't necessarily always help people. It takes, people like, also internally being encouraged and working on something, some project, even if it's just like working on their own selves, working on, working on something to contribute to their own poverty alleviation, and also to their own like sense of purpose in their world, and also to their own, and also to the rest of the community. And so like, just going to Kali Palama and just like throwing $2,000 in the street, going, oh, here's some charity, like that doesn't necessarily, it's like teach a man to fish, teach someone to fish, feed them for a day, give someone to fish, feed them for a day, teach someone to fish, feed them for life. And so when China is helping Africa build win-win cooperation, build their actual COVID manufacturing plants, like Bolivia having their own lithium, and economic development is key and very important. Economic development, sovereignty is key and important, and education to actual final liberation. Not just like, the indigenous people of Turtle Island, especially in the north, should really be looking at what they're doing down there, going like, not asking Canada for justice. I mean, you have to keep doing that, but like finally building economic sovereignty and power as part of the North American Belt and Road Initiative, and getting out from, if the Wet'suwet'en territory is not ceded territory to Canada, the Wet'suwet'en territory can directly go to China and say, hey, China, can you build infrastructure that doesn't make us boil water? Because indigenous communities still have decades-long boil water advisories, right? And can we, the indigenous people of so-called Canada, participate with China in the rebuilding of can we manufacture COVID vaccines in our indigenous territory? Because they can do it in Africa. They were worse off even in all these African countries. Now they're already within a few years building COVID-19 vaccines, right? Bolivia didn't have anything. They were in complete poverty. 10, 20 years later, after the socialist movements, they have world-class lithium extraction, they have the tractors, they've got the huge plants, they've got the scientists, indigenous technologists building the AI, the programmers, indigenous Bolivian programmers, Quechua, Guarani programmers. Like I'm a native Hawaiian programmer, programming the artificial intelligence that manages a soft drink and water bottling and glass manufacturing facility, and they have engineers and maintainers designing the facility. They have nanotechnologists in Bolivia. You will not believe how fast they are leapfrogging the United States and Western countries, right? They have one of the world's biggest and richest lithium deposits. It's a key to renewable energy, one of the main keys, and with the help of China and the rest of the world, they're building their own actual final sovereignty. Canada is never going to clean anything up. Canada is going to annihilate every indigenous person till it dies. The question is, will the indigenous people of the Wet'suwet'en in that territory figure out how to work with the people that they can work with, like China? If you know, I'm going to say that again. Wet'suwet'en is not a territory of Canada. Wet'suwet'en can cut deals directly with China. Hawaii is not a country of is not a state of the United States. Hawaii could cut deals directly with China. You know how fast they can build high-speed rail? How long is it taking your rail to go? 20 years, 20 years, 300% over budget, right? How long do you want to keep wasting your tax dollars, wasting your time, and watching all of your infrastructure money go down to a broken rail? Or are you going to have China come in and build an actual functioning rail? Hawaii is not a state of the United States. Hawaii can directly cut deals with China. The question is, will enough Hawaiians demand recognition in the United Nations? Will Hawaiians demand get that fucking U.S. military bases out? Will they work with the Chinese and the rest of the world to finally have enforce the sovereignty that is already declared by the United Nations, the world's biggest and most successful international organization? Will the Hawaiians demand and recognize and get the? That's why I'm doing a lot of these streams, brother. Get the international community of socialists that are actually beating the empire to join and become like the Bolivians, become like the Nicaraguans, right? Get your fucking your pride back. Get your fucking get rid of your humiliation. Get your self-respect back, right? Stop sitting around doing paperwork for some fucking rich golf course owner in the country club in Kahala. Stop being a fucking denturist for some rich clown in the Pentagon's, freaking Mapuna branch down there in Red Hill, poisoning yourself. Why are you still working, loading and unloading nuclear submarines that are gonna go fight nuclear war and kill people, and for not even enough money, drinking poison water? How much longer are you gonna wait till you become Bolivian? Till you become Nicaraguan? How much longer? And then I'll say it to the same thing to the Wet'suwet'en. All those people up there. You're an unceded motherfucking territory. Right? And then one day there will be 49 states again, because the United States doesn't have any legitimate claim to any territory. It's a fascist fucking project of stolen land, stolen people. The question is, how long will it take till the people in these places get right with them? And it's going to take Europe a very long time. It's going to take many states of the United States a long time. But the sooner that they can stop being misled. That's why why are all this anti-China stuff? Because they're trying to get you to not side with the indigenous people whose rightful territory you're on and become a member of the nation that you're on, and then work against global capitalism that's headquartered in your country, DC and Wall Street. The anti-China propaganda, the anti-all Russia, all this international global actual socialist country stuff is about anti-indigenous stuff that you're seeing. Oh, land back is a corporate scheme by Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos just bought $45 million motherfucking dollars worth of Hawaii when he gave a pittance amount to an indigenous organization, and he fucking spent 4 times as much destroying Hawaii alone. That's not all the money he spent that week. Is they want you to not alleviate your own poverty by being actually a leftist and in radical solidarity with the indigenous people of the world, which actually, most of them are actually in Asia. Did you know that? You don't know that because you live in a diseducation system called the entire Western world, and then you'll keep suffering there. You keep suffering in Toronto. You keep suffering in Vancouver. You keep suffering there. Even as a white person, you're going to suffer there some more. Your housing, you're never going to afford. As a Gen Z, you're a millennial. Never mind, millennials are all old already. If you're Gen Z, you're never going to afford to have your own place. Never. Luna Oy and the American Johnson have their own place, and they can have their nice career going on motorcycles to see their coochie tunnels, making YouTube videos, making awesome decolonizational video games like the Decoloninator, where you play a Vietnamese woman, like I was talking about. Contra, retro NES platformers where you beat the shit out of imperialists, you know. And we can do. Luna Oi and American Johnson and Silver Spook and Holly Argent can work together on this game because we're not paying fucking $3,000 a month for a house this size. Actually, a house this size would be like $4,000 because we got like fucking 5 bedrooms, separate 22-foot by 25-foot fucking studio over there. We in a nice area with drinkable water, not next to a fucking highway. You'd be paying like fucking $4,000 a month for this, right? We can do the work that we do because we are not paying into a capitalist oligarchy because we have like more or less successful land back. Not fully, we're here and we have to constantly be aware of this. But, you know, we can do that because we don't live in Honolulu, because we don't live in Seattle. American Johnson would be dead if he lived in America because his ear infection might have spread and caused like massive septic, you know, or blood poisoning in his body, or who knows what else, you know? Something else would have killed him. COVID-19, depression, suicide, who the fuck knows? America is full. I mean, he's definitely somebody that was a problem. Mental health, not the best, right? If he didn't leave for Asia, he might be dead already. How long will you put up with your shitscape civilization? Even if you're making more money, you know you hate it. That's why you make what? What do you make in the West? Pop quiz. What do you make in the West to as a slight cinematic copium for living in such a disgusting, barbaristic place, right? You make these. This is about guilt. This is about self-acknowledgement of how terrible the place you live in. And dystopias are about, as I said in the beginning, talking about the ends of the Western capitalistic, oligarchic, aristocratic, colonial, racist, white-centered, imperialist, all these things which are all just different heteropatriarchal, cis-heteronormative, kyriarchal, that are all functions of, you know, a barbaristic, mass-organized violence and disinformation-based might makes right reality that's been the way for several centuries, if not millennia. And the end of that is liberating in fiction because you're sick of it. No matter where you are, even if you're making 1.7 million a year in San Francisco, you know you are a terrible person. With Bobby Kotick, right, Bobby? You hate yourself. You know, that's why when shit goes down and the price of stocks are plunging in 0809, people dive out the side of the window because without their money filling an empty void, which no amount of dollars and no income, no jobs, no assets, high frequency traded Goldman Sachs based subprime mortgages, no amount of $400 Iron Chef Morimoto squid ink pasta dinners and $10,000 wines can ever fill. No amount of Tokyo Imperial Hotel shirts being laundered and ham sandwiches and cold Mexican beers can ever quench that thirst for a normal, human, healthy society, relationships, and self-dignity. Dignity at the end. You're not a dignified person, poor or rich in the West. You're self-hating, or people hate you, and you feel like a failure. There's only two things you can be. You can hate yourself, or other people can hate you. And you crave the end of it. That's why you make Mad Max. That's why you make I Have No Mouth and I Have No Scream. That's why you make Cyberpunk Dystopia. That's why you make Neuromancer. That's why you make Burning Chrome. That's why you make, Hell Comes to Frogtown. That's why you make Io. That's why you make the George Clooney movie where, you know, he goes to Jupiter and Earth is destroyed. Everything has to die. The end of the world. It's full of apocalyptic cults, you know? Jehovah's Witness, you know, the Mormon, the coming, the end times, the Lord, the neocons, and then when we shoot off the nukes into China and Russian dead hand launches from Moscow and ICBM and blows up DC and Wall Street, and then we shoot Israel, and the 72 angels will come, and on a bloody ocean with frogs and hellfire and all this apocalypse, Jesus will ride on his dinosaur, and we'll all be raptured up into a better place because we live in dystopia. And we are terrible people. And we want it all to end. Everyone wants it to end. You know, that's what they don't have. They don't have apocalyptic cults in China. They don't have the Vietnamese people don't want a zombie apocalypse to destroy Vietnam. Because they don't hate their government. They don't hate their businesses that are mostly cooperative. They don't hate their history. who fought on the right side. They don't hate their politicians like Ho Chi Minh and the people that they have currently in charge. They have disagreements, but they don't hate everyone. They don't hate their government. They don't hate their business. They don't hate themselves. The Vietnamese people don't want zombies, hellfire, meteors, and roving assless chap wearing Tina Turner led Thunderdome fighting motorcycle gangs to kill everyone. Because they don't hate themselves like you do. Dystopia is a symptom of a failed former civilization. When people start fantasizing about that, that is a symptom of a problem. And I say that as somebody who enjoys dystopias because I am a half stormtrooper, remember? The stormtrooper half of me loves dystopias. That's why I make Neofeud. You're probably going, Silver Spook, you make dystopias though. Yeah, because I'm half stormtrooper. And I fantasize about the end of Oahu being the illegal occupation of the United States capitalist world's largest fucking Death Star that has ever existed off of my fucking island. And that's the half of me that makes dystopias. And then there's another half that wants to return to the indigenous Hawaiian socialist civilization with the highest literacy rate in the world, with the most successful mass transit, rail, trolleys, and everything I've just gone over. Highest literacy rate, inventing Jules Verne 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea submarines. And we would already have had interstellar civilizations, possibly, definitely interplanetary, with Hawaiian and other indigenous socialist leadership under the Asia Pacific Communist Federation that Kalakaua was trying to build in the mid 1800s with the world's first universal healthcare system, right? And I would like to return to the process of building. The other half of me that's Hawaiian wants to return to rebuilding this, and that's why Neofeud 2 is not all sad. But I'm still half Stormtrooper because I know I've been steeped in your schools, in your pop culture, in your English language, in all of your cyberpunk books, in all of your Gibsonite, New York Times bestsellers like Burning Chrome, and all of your so-called thought leaders, all of your Jonathan Swifts, all of your Hobbes and your Leviathans, all of your history, all of your Voltaire. I know I have, and that part of my duty as a sabotager, as a turncoat of the empire, is to take everything that I know about you, your empire, and then help you try to undo it. And the other half of me is to liberate Hawaii. Is to be, and have my kids be full. I want my kids to not desire dystopia. That's how I know I was successful. If my kids don't turn around and go, oh my God, I just have to escape this world and watch it all fall apart. If my kids are 25 years old and they still really get a lot from Mad Max and it really resonates with them, I will know that I know that I have failed. Because I have not successfully done enough to build a world in which they do not desire to see the end of it, like the rest of the Michigonian, office workers and all of the people in the movie The Office, and all of the people, right, dreaming of zombie apocalypse in San Francisco because they hate the fact that they have teachers ODing by the thousands in the street with the nurses, right? And if my children desire dystopia, I will know that I have failed to undo the thing that produced me. I'm not to say that they might not watch Mad Max one day. You might see it, that's fine. But it's not like a thing that is really resonates really deeply, Anyways, I've been talking for a long period of time. It is now 1:19. So, there's infinite amounts of things to discuss. But talking smack about dystopias for so long, I should stop talking smack about dystopias because then people are not going to play Neofeud, right? No, while there exist empires, while the U.S. exists, while you live in a capitalistic world, while you live in a world that is not out from this, it is important for people to create. It doesn't have to make dystopia specifically, but it is important to name the thing that you're under, because there's another, if you don't recognize it, and don't forget Neofeud is on sale, this is the sequel to it. Neofeud 2, the important thing too is though not to only dwell in the collapse, the anarchistic tendency to want to collapse that thing that is ruling, right? But also to look at what comes next and what to be building, you know. So Neofeud is number one. Neofeud 1 is largely about that. Because why? Well, because, you know, I'm a non-white person from poverty, living in a Mazda tribute, eating spoonfuls of peanut butter for dinner, right? In Oahu, in America, in the U.S. occupied Hawaii, trying to survive a capitalistic, racist world, and that led to Neofeud 1. Neofeud 2 is a game that deals with, it has that still, that dystopian cyberpunk hellscape, but then it also has an advanced indigenous socialist civilizations with, you know, warp gates and, you know, not Mach 27, like faster than light travel that they invented because they have the masses of the population fed, educated, housed, clothed, working in true information-based societies that maximize their potential as scientists, engineers, technologists, healers, educators, etc. And then they build rocket ships and spaceships, and they surpass everyone in the West. And so Neofeud 2 deals with both of those things. So it's important for us that's why it's also important to, like, not only make dystopias, but it's important to recognize those problems with the society. Because if you don't recognize the problems and, like, really kind of visualize them and deal with them in some kind of dystopian fashion, I mean, in dystopian fiction, then, I mean, then you can also just think that you're in happy-go-lucky world. But nowadays you don't really have to tell Gen Z and millennials as much. Hey, you know, this world sucks. I shouldn't say that too strongly, though, because there's a lot of people who are still putting up with it. But there's a lesser percentage of people that are accepting the Western Matrix narrative about this is the best you can get, is trading NFTs for your insulin and, you know, working 6 different Uber jobs to not ever pay your rent, you know. I think people are starting to accept that. But anyway, yeah, so Neofeud is a cyberpunk game that is about homeless robots, an ex-con, and a socialist princess fighting a cabal of post-human CEO kings building fully automated luxury fascist capitalism and trying to stop it. Anyways, so don't forget it's on sale. Don't forget to check it out. Don't forget that also oh yeah, I'm gonna be on the Professor Flowers birthday stream, which is coming up this week. I think it's the 16th. I'm gonna try to arrange another panel thing for, like, the December one, but I haven't got it sorted out yet. Oh, everything's going very slow. Okay, so but yeah, I will be on the Professor Flowers. Professor Flowers is a black educator on YouTube. Yeah, this one, Professor Flowers birthday stream is coming up. Has a lot of important stuff on racism and intersections with that, with capitalism and etc. And Professor Flowers is also a black content creator, which has recently been discussed. It's BreadTube and LeftTube is incredibly white, and which is you know, for reasons that are discussed in the video. But Professor Flowers is having a birthday stream on 3 p.m. I'm not sure what time zone that is, but it's Lua's birthday community stream. So yeah, so check that out. I will be on it. And yeah. So yeah, Neofeud's on sale as well. Don't forget that. And oh yeah, one more shout out for Hell Comes to Frogtown. So one more thing I'll say about Hell Comes to Frogtown. Again, there's a lot. It's a pretty weird movie. It feels like you're crossing the streams with, like, acid and pot, you know, and 3 other things at the same time. But, you know, there's a few things that I did like about it. I mean, it's a B movie. Let's put it. You know, it's like a B movie. So, but, you know, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's terrible. It is kind of extremely weird and awkward and very cheap, but that's fine. One thing I did like about it is that, like, the main character is getting dragged around by the nuclear apocalypse happens, and then 65% of the male population dies, and, like, women run the world, and they're like, need to, like, make more soldiers, and the most dudes are not fertile, and so they find the one fertile dude, and his job is to go around and have sex with all the fertile women so that they can have enough people to, like, keep fighting battles against mutant frog people. Anyways, it's a pretty trippy movie. But you know, there are a few. I mean, there's not a. It's so hard to discuss without it being kind of NSFW and TOS. There's a lot of people having a lot of sex. A lot of people threatening to have a lot of sex. And the main guy, Roddy Piper, gets his balls zapped like 25 times in this movie, and that part's pretty funny. And also, you know, the main bad dude is a guy, is a white dude who wants to restore patriarchy, enrich uranium, and have nuclear weapons, and kind of blow the world up again. And so, I mean, at least, you know, it highlights who kind of, you know, it does a good job of like having accurate people be kind of the problematic people in the world, you know, unlike, I don't know, every Marvel movie, which has America being the good guys and everyone else that's against the US being the bad guys. So, you know, that I will say that Hell Comes a Frog, it's like, it is definitely like in the spirit of Mad Max and They Live. And if you really are out of dystopian 70s and 80s movies to watch that one, you know what I'm saying? Anyways. Also, I feel like everybody's gonna be, oh, I'm not gonna watch any dystopias now because I don't want to be, I don't want to be an unbased person. That's not what I'm saying. Like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm gonna probably watch this stuff till I die, you know, which is hopefully not for a while, you know. Hopefully not at the hands of fucking 2 men enter, 1 man leaves Thunderdome. But you know, Mad Max Thunderdome. I'm watching this movie. I like all the Mad Maxes for different reasons, you know. Don't like Mel Gibson. He's kind of a piece of shit, apparently. What the fuck is wrong with this dude? What is wrong with, you know, every old white guy ends up being a shit asshole at some point. And Mel is an old white guy now. But anyways, I do like all the Mad Max movies as well, and I recommend, if you haven't seen them, you know, it's a lot of fun. Which is what the game we're currently working on. Oh, one more shout out is for the Colonators. Oh shit, no, it's not even up yet. We are currently working on a game with Luna Oi. Here, actually, you know what? I'll let you see the inside the game real fast. Since you stick around for the end of the stream, I'm going to show you the current updates on inside of the Decolonators game, or the progress that has been made. Decolonators is a game where you play a Vietnamese, as I said, Vietnamese communist soldier, a woman soldier. It is voiced by none other than Luna Oi herself, our great comrade Luna Oi, the Vietnamese YouTuber and content creator and educator, who's going to be on a international panel with Danny Haifong and a bunch of other folks in a, I think it's today actually, in fact. Isn't Luna on it today? Anyway, Luna Oi is voicing the main character. Let's get some appropriate music for this. Hold on 1 second here. And this is a little bit of in-game for you since you stuck around for this long.
Time to kick some capitalist colonizer butt.
Yeah, you see? Let's do that one more time. Oh. Say that again. This is Luna doing this voice.
Time to kick some capitalist colonizer butt.
So, and you're fighting the U.S. Empire. You're actually fighting the bad guys in this, you see? You got the gun working. You got the U.S. soldiers are shooting at you. You got Knife Man.
Ouch.
Oh shit, you're getting shot. And you can say things like, wait, let me see. We find some more guys in there. Oh shit. Don't fall through the cracks so you die, okay? Just like Contra. Okay.
If you surrender now, Yankee, I might go easy on you.
Wait, let's try it one more time.
If you surrender now, Yankee, I might go easy on you.
That's Luna again. Oh.
If you surrender, I eat imperialists like you for breakfast.
I gotta make that one louder.
Ow!
Oh shit.
Cheese butter scratch.
Yeah, so Luna is playing the main character, and what you do is you just like you literally just like kick the shit. You kick the shit out of tons and tons and tons of U.S. soldiers. You know, imperialist, capitalist, genocide warmongers that are coming in to destroy communism and the Vietnamese indigenous people. You know, so it's literally like land back Asia. You know what I'm saying? You shoot them in the ass, you shoot them in the face, you shoot them all over the place.
Ouch! Cheese butter scratch.
Anyways, so that's some of the in-game for Decolonators. So I got the knife character, I got the gun character, still working on some other characters. There's more voice acting than that's coming. We're still working on it. And you know, it's going well. So look out for that game. the Decolonators, it's gonna be a pretty short game. It's just kind of like a fun winter, like a December game jam length. It's like a we're trying to make it in less than a month sort of project, and then maybe that'll just be part 1. And if people like that, there might be more parts to it. We'll see. But yeah, that's currently in development. And Luna is the principal voice, the main voice actor for that, and also the main researcher. Luna's helping with a lot of like getting Vietnamese history and actual with the weapons and the wars that they actually fought correct. And we also have Ophidian Cobra. Ophidian the Cobra, who is the master of snake style, maker of garments, and also was he's a semi-retired wrestler known as Ophidian the Cobra, and works with Closet Champion, is doing voices in this, as well as who else is there? Kate Nix. Okay, Holly has a link to it. I forget the actual name of the actual Kate Nix thing, but anyways, sorry about that. I'm missing it right now. But it's Ophidian's partner. That's what it is. The other half of Closet Champion, the Goblin Mother. That's what it is. Kate Nix is also voicing a character from this, and also Positive Synergy, who is another member of the Silver Spook Hui over here, another Native Lion, will be doing another part later on. I don't have all. There might be a few other parts, but I don't have all of them written out yet. So I still gotta. There's a lot to finish. I don't have Kate or Ophidian's characters done, so they're not. That's why it's only Luna right now. Anyways, so that's coming though. Look out for this game where you fucking do NES retro Contra side scroller gaming, but you play Vietnamese communist revolutionaries kicking the shit out of imperialist capitalist butts. So anyways, Neofeud, however, is a game that is on Steam that is out right now, and you can get it. You can get it on sale for $4.49. Like I said, for less than the price of a cinnamon chai chocolate mocha, Neo and Trinity latte, because the Matrix is coming out, right? And they're gonna start selling Starbucks lattes. Congratulations on 2 Starbucks unionizing, by the way. Did you know that every Starbucks in Vietnam is unionized, by the way? Anyways, again, you want Linebacker, or do you want shitty patriot fake leftism? Neofeud is like Disco Elysium, but more cyberpunk. And also had full voice acting when it came out. Also, it's made by an indigenous worker cooperative here at the Silver Spook Hui. But Disco Elysium is also a good game. If you have a second to leave even a very short review, it is greatly appreciated, as it does help us to get the Neofeud game noticed by more people on the Steam website. It is greatly appreciated. And then we also have Neofeud is also available on itch.io for Windows, Mac, and Linux. And for Windows, Mac, and Linux, you can also get it on sale. You can also get it DRM free. You can get Neofeud without having to install Steam, and it's also a game that you can get without, with giving the maximum value to the creators, because it gives you the best cut. You can also become a Patreon if you so choose at patreon.com/Neofeud. Looks like somebody might have just become a patron, so thank you a lot if you did. Let's just check this here. Oh, Strin Sam. I gotta go add you to that list. Okay, thanks a lot to Strin Sam for becoming a Patreon patron. It is greatly appreciated. And all these people on this list as well. Thank you so much. Strin Sam. Maxing out on characters. That's it. Shit. What am I gonna do now? Is that Strin Sam? Nope, that's it. That's all she wrote. Okay, well, thanks to Strin Sam. I'll figure out what to do with your name later on. I have to figure out something else. Anyway, I don't know if people really like this or what, but thanks to all the people who have supported and historically and continue to support everything that we do here at the Silver Spook Cooperative, where we do try to do all the indigenous left education through these streams and through the games as well, and entertain people through the streams and through the games as well. Making of Neofeud 2, and of course of helping house and feed and clothe from each according to our ability to according to our need here at the Silver Spook Hui, where there are no bosses and no landlords. And also if you would like to follow us, you can follow at silverspookgames at octodon.social on Mastodon. Mastodon is a decentralized, non-capitalist, controlled, federated, open source social media platform like Twitter, but without billionaires, mega corporations, Wall Street, the Pentagon, and DC, and the Silicon Valley big tech deciding what you see and what you don't see. However, while we have access to the Death Star satellites, as always, you can also... communism. What? Somebody's hot. I was like, Luna, boy, what's this mean? It literally is working in Vietnam, but okay, low effort conservative meme. Jenny Z Yang, why are you selling out your own Asian socialist peoples? Anyways, you can follow at Silverspook Guy on the Death Star satellites while we have access to the Death Star. If I keep saying shit and getting like, if I keep getting anti-US empire, US military industrial complex critical threads like this one, retweeted and liked fucking 6,900 times, I might not be on the desk, you know what I'm saying? So anyway, I don't know, maybe I think it's hard for them because if the US, when it's embarrassed by China having better democracy despite the democracy summit, with China having better treatment of the Uyghur and other ethnic minorities than the United States despite their continued baseless attacks, when the US needs to look like they care about ethnic minorities more than China despite them not, it's going to be hard for them to justify it if the US decides to delete Native Hawaiian accounts, right, off of Twitter, because then, you know, I'm gonna go to another one. I'm gonna be like, and then, you know, then I'll be on CGTN and be like, hey, China, when are you? Let's get this going, you know. And then it'll really be over to the US, right? Because then I'll be like, the US literally is stopping Native Hawaiians from speaking at all. How can you say that they care about ethnic minorities when they won't even let Native Hawaiians, you know, not only speak their own language, even use basic social media platforms, right? That would be really embarrassing for the US, wouldn't it, right? If they tried to silence all of the Native Hawaiian historically genocided communities. But that's why, that's my kuleana, is to be that person, because Chinese people, they can defame them a lot, and oh, you're CCP. But what are they gonna say about Native Hawaiians? Everybody loves Hawaii, right? That's why I'm kind of a certain, that's my positionality as one of the weapons that I am, is everybody loves Hawaii. They feel sad for Hawaiians. And then my job is to go, oh, you feel sad for this? And how about this, and that? And they can't delete me because, well, they can. But, you know, it'll just be like, oh shit, now CGTN has Silverspook on, and then it's like putting on blast for 7 billion people how much you actually hate and destroy Native Hawaiians and how much you really crush them, you know? And that would be embarrassing for the United States in a time when its military can barely get its aircraft carriers to not kill its own troops. That would be so embarrassing, wouldn't it? You're really in a, that's why I'm like, all we can do is just keep kicking them in the fucking face, because everything they do only hurts them. You know, everything that they say bounces off of me and sticks on them because I'm made out of rubber, because I'm Gumby. Silverspook Games is the Twitter account for the games related stuff. Silverspook Games is where the games related things like Neofeud 2 updates, when Neofeud 1 goes on sale, and other things like that come out. So also feel free to follow this one. Not to say that they don't stop, because when I tweet about Wet'suwet'en and decolonialism, when I put YouTube channel titles, video titles that have decolonization or anything related to the things I talk about, nobody can find my stream. So it's not like the Death Star isn't already like ion cannoning me. I'm not the most important one. They hit other more bigger platforms than me first. So but it's a thing. Just being brown on YouTube is already, you're dealing with racism everywhere, because it's a racist platform and it's full of white people, and most of the people on it are internally don't even realize how racist they are. You can follow Terminus C as well, though, if you want to follow a low poly cyberpunk immersive sim that is based on PC games like Deus Ex and System Shock. I am the content director / lead writer of this video game. Speaking of games that decenter whiteness, you play a brown socialist hacktivist revolutionary that deals with racism, and racism is in your face in this game. Like, there's literally racists saying shit like, you brown outsider scum, you gotta go back to your crappy shithole country in Africa. That happens in this game because there are racists. I don't know if you know this. There's racism in the West. There's racist. So this game actually, Terminus Machina, deals directly with that, as well as Neofeud. Like, it deals with this garbage. Terminus Cyberstar is another game that will deal directly with racism, capitalism, imperialism, and all this bullshit. And it's a 3D cyberpunk game. Don't forget to follow it. There's a handful of writers and level designers and other folks that are working on it. So consider checking it out and following it. Unlike The Expanse, which pretends like racism just disappears and goes away, and nobody sees race. They're all colorblind because it's written by 2 cis white men that are Gen Xers. This game is not. Anyways, you can also join a Discord, and you can also you join a Discord, and finally, thanks very much to Holly Argent, our continued very important moderator and care worker, our primary care worker and moderator, and maintainer of Silver Spook, Hui, and for all the work that Holly does. And of course, one more time, don't forget, Holly has put a book out. If you are not happy, do you not like conservative North American white Christianity that much? This is a book that's a really long, kind of really hot take and an irreverent look at conservative Christianity from the eyes of Mary. It's like Mary doing a upset, pissed off Twitter thread. It's a book that you can get for free, or you can name your own price, and it's called Woman by Holly, who is the other half of Silver Spook. Anyways, until next time, so check that out. Keep your mirror shades polished. Be excellent to each other. Remember that as we are all stormtroopers, we will probably have to keep watching Dystopias just to kind of cope. As a little bit of laughing at our own failed countries and our own abused situations, and that's totally you got to do that. You got to do that because you got to do something to deal with this. But remember also that this is a symptom of places that have barbarism instead of civilization and normal human societies, and we should try to assist those places that have normal humans and civilizations and indigenous civilizations in helping us heal from the long Roman passed on traumas. Anyways, all right, how do I press the stop button?